Jesus. Big Beach Blues. Hello, Jesus. I got them big beach blues. I got them big beach blues. Be my home. If I have a warning on my TikTok account, how do I make that go away? How do I know when it expires? $90. Love Jesus, I got them big beach blues. I got them big beach blues. Oh, what? This bitch got kicked in the face by a skate? That's not cool. At all. Wow. Lord Jesus. What's up, Tray Flip Legend? Oh, it's breakfast time. It's cold as hell in here. Ugh. No, no shit, man. Jesus. I'm waiting for this debate to start. Jesus. What you doing, Jesus? What are you up to, Jesus? Okay. TikTok's whack. Whacked out of its skull. All these video games.
Find a great rental car deal with Kayak. And find the confidence to do important things on your phone.
Just gonna be thirsty. I already cracked the lid, but here we go.
Welcome to a debate edition of the Whatever podcast, coming to you live from Santa Barbara, California. I'm your host and moderator, Brian Atlas. A few quick announcements before the show begins. This podcast is viewer supported, so please consider donating. Streamlabs, that's streamlabs.com/whatever. TTS is going to be $199 and up. There will be no instant TTS. TTS will come in batches at various breaks throughout the debate. You can see the description for all triggers and full details. Without further ado, I'm joined today by Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible. He's a blood sports debater and political commentator. Also joining us today is Kyla, or as she goes online, Not So Erudite. She has an undergraduate in psychology and a graduate diploma in psychometrics. She's a content creator, streamer, and is a political and social commentator. You each have about 3-minute opening statement each, and then straight into open conversation. I believe you're going first, Kyla.
Sure. Do we have any prompts we want to read first? Do you want me to just jump into it?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I'll read the prompts then, so that we're going to cover 4 prompts, time permitting. There's Christian nationalism is un-American. That's prompt 1. Prompt 2, Christians should attempt to maintain political power in U.S. and rule through Christian ethics as is the superior system. Prompt 3, secular states are destined to likely revert back to religiously informed governments because atheists have no moral basis for which to govern. Prompt 4, moderate liberal values are not compatible with Christianity. Modern liberal values. My mistake. Go ahead.
Okay.
America is not a church, and that is not a weakness. It is one of the greatest strengths of America. The American experiment was built on a bold idea. Faith must be freely chosen. Conscience must be protected. Political power must be limited. The founders, men of inquiry, men of science, men who built universities and ran experiments, drafted a constitution that banned religious tests for office. That was not hostility to Christianity, that was confidence in its integrity. Because when church and state merge, bias corrupts the state. But more importantly, to me, power corrupts the church. Separation does not weaken the church, it protects it. America's ethos is simple. We do what works. And how do we know what works? Science. We test, we measure, we build, we refine. If it fails, we discard it. If it succeeds, we scale it. That instinct, that relentless pursuit of truth through evidence is not anti-Christian. It is a reflection of intellectual humility. America is industry. America is laboratories and shipyards and production lines that outwork empires. America is the Manhattan Project, physicists racing equations against tyranny and winning. America is the P-51 Mustang, not sacred tradition, but engineering superiority screaming across the sky. That spirit defeated fascism. It destroyed communism. It mapped the atom. It put satellites in orbit. It built the medical systems, infrastructure, and technology that shaped the modern world.
What?
My
How do you
America
defeat
fears no
fascism?
truth. It preserves through discovery. It does not shrink from paleontology,
What a
geology,
what
or
a
evolutionary
retard.
biology. Truth is not an enemy of faith. If God is sovereign, then no discovery threatens him. Evolution and belief have coexisted for generations. Scientific advancement need not displace theological conviction. America did not fight a revolution to resurrect sacred hierarchy. It did not cast off empire to create another throne draped in religious conformity. It created a republic confident enough to protect the liberty of conscience for all people. Religious principles need no safeguarding anyway. Christianity survived the Roman Empire. It persisted despite Nero trying to kill him. It grew to prominence and converted the known word not by sword, but by the quill. I wish my Christian brothers and sisters today still had the same confidence in the gospel as then. My America is equal protection. My America is equal protection under the law, freedom of speech, limits on state power. Those are not principles foreign to Christianity. They echo the belief that every person bears dignity, that coercion cannot produce genuine faith, and that moral transformation begins in the heart, not in legislation. Christianity has flourished for many of the same reasons that America has. They have thrived without subjugation, and they have spread without war. And when they did either of these two things, people came to hate it. The American dream and the holy word persuade because people believe their truth, not because it is enforced. America moves forward, America builds, America competes, America leads, not by fusing church and state, but by unleashing human ingenuity without demanding theological uniformity first. America is doing what works, and that is why it leads the world.
Are you just taking a water break, or do you... All done? Okay, perfect. Andrew, go ahead with your opening statement.
I'm way too hungover for this shit, but I got a beer, so that'll help me hear the dog a little bit. So, just to be blunt, some of the reasons that I don't particularly enjoy debating with Erudite is because there's a specific style she has, which is called the pop quiz style. Gets in trouble around arguments and worldview. She drops a pop quiz. You know what X is, at X usually being a random obscure fact, which has little to nothing to do with the conversation.
Pop quiz. Pop quiz.
AI can't fly. But it can help boost trajectory for more airtime.
Fuck Google. Fuck the Olympics.
Sup? Because I want the audience to be aware
Fuck
that
YouTube.
I really just hate pop quiz,
Oh,
the
I shouldn't
pop
have said
quiz
that.
debates. It's an old Twitch take, and it's just, to me, it's cringe. It's not the Socratic method. It's just, I'm gonna introduce a pop quiz about some factoid that is completely irrelevant to the debate. But anyway, when leftists say anything is un-American, I'm forced to laugh about it. Progressives and liberals like Erudite here only have one single value structure ultimately, and it's loyalty to an amoral liberal system. To progressive liberals, and I kid you not, let's give an example. The example of Bob. Bob can go buy a brand new deluxe PC for his 18-year-old daughter, put a camera on top of it, and manage her career as a porn star on OnlyFans, while he's upstairs with her former teachers fapping to it on his Oculus porn helmet, and there isn't a fucking thing anybody can do about it, because Bob pays taxes. Bobby gets up every stinking day and he goes to work and he rolls up his sleeves and he gets the job done. And by God, if Bob wants to fap to daughter porn with her former teachers, who the fuck are you to tell him he can't? If Bob wants to loan his wife out to his friends for an all-night blitzed-up legal drug-fueled gangbang and then finish it off by snorting prescription painkillers so he doesn't come too early, then by God, that's his right as an American and a patriot. Who the fuck are you sick fascists to judge Bob? He ain't breaking any laws. pays his taxes, and he's following the system, baby, and that's what matters. The liberal process of amoral systems rather than immoral. Everything's permitted. If the global hegemon of the world needs to put machine guns to the back of little Africans' heads so they can dig out the special Sudanese cell phone crystals, then so fucking be it. Bob needs his perfect reception for his satellite-driven cell phone in order to get the perfect nude image of his wife being split down the middle like a piece of meat in an all-white bread sandwich. And who the fuck are you to tell Bob shit? Nobody. That's who. Just a judgmental little fascist trying to legislate morality in an amoral system which is oriented around a nonsense of a smorgasbord of moral buffets, which boils down to a choose-your-own degenerate adventure. Nothing short of that is un-American. Here's a bunch of un-American stuff, depending on when you were alive. Universal suffrage, pretty fucking un-American. Abolishing slavery was pretty fucking un-American. Homosexuality was definitely un-American. Age of consent laws were un-American. Incest laws were un-American. Income taxes were un-American. Sex outside of wedlock was un-American. Refusal to duel when being called out was un-American. Not being white was un-American. Co-ed schools were un-American. Black people in white schools, so un-American we needed the military involved. The list goes on and on. But according to erudite, Christian nationalism is un-American because America basically begins in the early 20th century based on Lincoln models of federalism. That's what's American. Part of that, of course, should be not listening to a person who grew up under a king in a constitutional monarchy like she did. Gross. Bunch of fascist bootlickers over in Maple Land. That's pretty fucking un-American too. Christian nationalism is as compatible with Americanism as the liberal order of amoral systems allows, which means perfectly compatible because there isn't any ought to tell it no. The entire proposition from the liberal angle itself is self-refuting. It just goes like this. If people vote for Christian nationalists, what are they doing which is un-American? The answer? Fucking nothing. If they vote in a KKK, Nazi fascist Hugo Boss SS uniform wearing lunatic who packs the court, persecutes all non-whites, all within the whim and the confines of the amoral system, then what's un-American about that? And the answer? Fucking nothing. Because the progressive liberal system is built on nothing. Just vague appeals to my rights and my freedoms and my own system, which allows you to get rid of the system. It's absurd and self-refuting. That's my opening.
Cool. So I guess to clarify, maybe we should clarify Christian nationalism, because I feel like that's going to be a bit of the crux of the conversation. So how do you want to define it?
To the definition of Christian nationalism would just be the proposition that Christians utilize influence and authority to stay in the moral majority, and that they adopt systems towards Christian ethics.
When you say moral majority, what does that mean to you?
It means that most laws and social systems confine around Christian ethics.
Okay. So you would like to basically see a change of current statecraft to include more Christian policies?
All Christian policies.
Can I ask to what extent? Like, does this...
To as much of an extent as liberalism allows, which is all extents.
Okay, so would you, when you advocate for Christian nationalism though, I'm sure you and I would probably agree, probably if, say, the moral majority becomes Christian, particularly in the way that maybe you're advocating for, we would probably move in the direction of reducing constitutional policy and increasing Christian policy specifically, probably all the way up to including theocracy.
No, they're not incompatible.
So you don't think that...
Constitutional policies, so under liberalism, this is the great thing about liberalism. So do you remember, like, you had this conversation with a guy the other day. I don't know how long ago it was, but he was like a fan of mine. He called in. It was about Christian nationalism. I think you got the clip on your channel. There was a point...
AI is changing everything. But that's your thing. Change. Like changing frenzy into fearlessness. And Adobe is here for it because we're turning AI promise into marketing reality, where personalization feels more human. And customers feel more connected.
That's like the most American thing I can think of. The most American thing I can think of is that a Canadian immigrant is like, you know what, this is my country now. and you're not gonna fucking bastardize it with whatever your shit is, because I don't want you to. And the other guy's like, I don't give a shit what you want, we're gonna do it anyway. And then it goes vice versa, and it's like, that is liberalism. Ultimately, if we want to get rid of alcohol via an amendment, we can. If we want to bring it back via an amendment, we can and have. If we want to get rid of guns, we can and have. If we want to bring them back, we can and have. It's like everything is permitted.
So yeah, so by your logic then, Christian nationalists not only are trying to win the culture, they're trying to win the state. To
Well,
impose Christian policy on the state.
well, via, well, not, they're
Congress.
imposing liberalism on the state, actually.
Well, well, in this case,
Because if-
well, I don't want to
If
say
it's, I'm not going to equivocate. If Christian nationalists amend every single constitutional amendment within the confines of liberalism to reflect only Christian policy, by your metric, that's liberalism.
So the issue is that I'm not like a democratic absolutist, right? I don't believe in democracy in the state. I believe in like some level of limited democracy. In fact, even now we have like electoral democracy. We have elected representatives. We don't have direct popular vote, which I think is good. I think that that's a better democratic system than, for example, pure absolute democracy, like popular vote. So there's always limits on democracy, right? So when you say liberalism, I think the issue is like liberalism to you just mean, it seems like what it means to you is we can vote for stuff. Is that what it means? What does it mean to you?
It's what you outlined in your opening. Liberalism is just a sequence of systems. It's science, man, and it's building shit, and it's industry, and it's all of these isms, which really are just confined to, I want a system. So liberalism is an amoral system.
Do you think science is liberalism?
No, but I think that liberals adopt science as part of their system.
Well, yeah, they allow it. Do you think capitalism is liberalism?
I think they adopt capitalism as part of their system.
Could they adopt other things?
Sure.
Okay, so then what's liberalism?
Liberalism is an adaptation of an amoral system.
What is this? Sorry, at a statecraft level, what does this mean?
That you have a system which is an amoral system.
Why is the amoral piece essential to
Because
liberals?
that's why you prefer secularism. You want a system which is amoral. So it's based on individualism. It's based on,
Is individualism amoral?
yeah, well, from the liberal view it is, yeah.
How is individualism amoral?
Because there's no ought. There's no ought under a liberal system for you to do anything.
Or there is. There's
What's-
oftentimes, right? Like a liberal
What?
system doesn't impose any certain moral. Well, the most common.
On Robinhood app, how do I send my friend or contact information a referral link or whatever?
Sorry, what's
Under-
the difference between amoral and agnostic on
Yeah,
morality?
so you can be agnostic about something which is moral or immoral, right? That's true. But that doesn't mean you're amoral. But what you're looking for is a system which is amoral. So you're saying, like, look, we're not going to make any moral prescriptions because that's not what the function of the state is.
So do you think that what the founding fathers did was amoral? Like, it's not something to respect, it's not something valuable? What do you think about the founding fathers?
What does that have to do with anything?
The founding fathers created the American world. You're saying, it seems like you're saying America is liberalism and this liberalism is weak. Or do
Well,
you think America is something
it became
else?
liberalism when you destroyed the Republic with universal suffrage in the 14th Amendment.
The Republic was just a language utilized to talk about a specific type of democracy, right?
No, it had a foundationalism. You're talking about 39 out of 50 signers, only 3 of them were deists. And foundationally, the states, under the 10th Amendment, were allowed to adopt their own religions and did. It was only until we got to the 14th Amendment, way later,
Well, so-
that this was no longer
Yeah,
the case.
yeah, yeah.
And opening,
Yeah, no, I just felt like maybe trying to fuck with the algorithm. I thought maybe changing my name would help with the algorithm or something like that. Just testing it out. I could always change it back if I wanted to.
Amendment stops states from adopting religion. I'll show you so that you understand how the process worked.
So do you think that the founding fathers established a religion for the
No, they
nation?
established the 10th Amendment, which says that all rights which are not given to the federal government are given to the prospective states. Because the First Amendment covered that federally, this was part of a compromise. That compromise happened because of the Articles of Confederation. So the Articles of Confederation initially were the libertarian wet dream, but they didn't work because states couldn't have uniform commerce or uniform dollars or a uniform military. So they adopted a form of federalism and compromised. The compromise was the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment stated that actually states could have their own religions, and they did. Almost all the states had their own religion post-constitutional ratification. And
By
most
own
people
religion,
don't know that.
By own religion, what do you mean? Do you just mean the test clause?
No. They had state religions.
The test clause. You had to be
No,
to be
not
in
a test.
power.
Two or three.
So why did the federal United States not have a religion? Why did it allow the states to make those choices?
Because of the 10th Amendment.
What was the principle? What were the founding fathers trying to do? What do you think the
They
founding
were
fathers
trying
cared
to
about?
separate the power of federalists between anti-federalists and federalists. So
So-
they compromised on two major amendments. The Second Amendment, which initially was way looser in language, and then they compromised on the 10th Amendment as well, because states wanted to have their own militias, they wanted to have their own militaries, they wanted to have their own currencies. Congress was like, look, we need to have the power to raise armies, we need to have the power to coin money. If you allow us to have those two powers, then all the other prospective powers will give to the states, which they did. That included religion.
So the founding fathers intended what for it to be a Christian nation, to have some level of
They intended for each state to be able to govern as they saw fit in order to implement religions
But-
if they chose to.
the exclusion, federal level specifically, of any religion, right?
But that's not in what's in contest here.
That is in what's context,
Why?
right? If we're talking about America,
Mhm.
we're talking about the nation.
Yeah,
We're talking
in the
about the
First
founding
Amendment-
fathers, the minds behind the founding of
The
the
founding
nation.
fathers put in amendment processes for us to amend things, including the
Sure.
First Amendment, right?
Sure, yeah, but why, if they wanted to blend church and state, why would they write that
They
in?
did blend church and state
Did
because
not. They
under
have.
the 10th Amendment, they allowed states to adopt state religions. It was only when the Supreme Court looked at the 14th Amendment way later in our history that they decided, and by the way, that amendment had nothing to even do with this. That was about citizenship.
State religions isn't the same thing as America having a federal religion. You realize this, right?
Whoever postulated that we needed to have a federalized religion?
Well, I'm talking about separation of church and state
Yeah,
for
but
America.
if states can have their own religion inside the state and it becomes the state religion, does that, in your opinion, violate that separation of church
Well,
and
if
state?
there's a test clause, yeah, it probably potentially would violate that. So if the state imposes a test clause for federal power, that would be an issue. And
Do
in
you know
fact,
when the last
it was super common at the time that most states had clauses. In fact, the founding fathers were so intense about ensuring separation of power that despite most colonies at the time having a test clause for holding power
Yeah.
of being religious,
Yeah.
they explicitly barred it in, what was it, Article 6.
Oh yeah? Then
Yeah.
how come in Maryland you had to declare until 1960 something, I believe, that you believed in God in order to hold office?
Because in Maryland, they made that decision, but at a federal level, well, we're not talking about Maryland, we're talking about America.
Yeah,
Is
America.
Maryland America?
America is a coalition of states which have federalized. That's
Sure.
what's going on.
But don't you think that the Constitution of America maybe matters when we're talking about the ethos of America? Okay, so when
You
the
mean that
founding
amendable?
fathers,
You mean that completely amendable thing?
well, completely amendable is makes it sound way looser than it is. Amending and adding amendments
It is way
incredibly
looser.
difficult.
Look, what's un-American about amending the First Amendment?
Nothing.
Okay. So then, inside of your worldview, it's completely constitutional to amend the First Amendment
Well,
to
it's
get rid
I
of,
shouldn't- I shouldn't say-
hang on, to get rid of the Establishment Clause. That would be totally appropriate
But
under
I
your
think that
worldview.
would be a violation of the American ethos. I think it's bad and, well,
How?
here,
How?
because America's built on these things. I think that the founding fathers.
You don't believe America? Okay. Does
Hold
America
on.
have?
Do I get to finish my thoughts, or are you going to
Go
interrupt
ahead,
me?
go ahead.
Okay, right. I think what's really important here is that, like, the founding fathers, I think, are essential to understanding the ethos of America. I don't think they're the only piece, but if we want to look at like a litany of America over time, what we have, for example, is the founding fathers, despite the nation being dominantly Christian,
Yeah.
despite the states having test religious,
Yeah.
the founding fathers looking at that, going, no, we need a separation of church and state.
That's not what
essential.
happened.
That is
No.
absolutely what happened.
Not only is it not what happened, the framework that you're talking about. You just said it's not un-American to amend.
How did it not happen?
Hang on. You just said it's not in any way un-American to amend the First Amendment. The First Amendment is.
I should have clarified that, because when we say American,
Uh-huh.
I'm meaning the ethos. I should have said it's not anti-constitutional.
So-
the Constitution would
So,
allow for it.
okay, then let's follow that line of logic and see if that's true. Does American have any sort of like ethnic ethos?
Yeah,
What is it?
dominantly white culture, hegemonically.
So that's part of the American ethos?
Yeah, to some degree, yeah, significantly, right? Like white
Should it stay that
Protestant-
way?
I like it, yeah.
So America should stay a white Protestant nation?
But that's not the central piece of the ethos. You said, does it have a cultural ethos? And I said,
I'm asking
white.
if, okay,
It's one of them.
should it stay white?
No, I don't care about the white
And that's
piece.
not part of American ethos.
But how is that the case? Absolutely something that can be a part of the ethos and also change. Because the ethos here that's central isn't the whiteness that I was pointing to.
It's what?
Some of the cultural values that come in. For example, Protestant work ethic, right? Taking value in the product in the product that you make as
And
a
if
company.
America no longer had any of that and became completely atheistic, but still followed these constitutional amendments, that's still plenty American, right?
As long as I hold to central ethos of what I think the American dream
That's
is, which
why
we
I'm asking
outlined,
you
for example,
if
in
it's-
with the founding fathers of the Declaration of Independence.
Well, then if it's not whiteness, and it's not
It's not
anything,
whiteness.
and it's not anything cultural,
It is cultural.
Oh my God.
It means
Sorry.
that according to
No idea what happened there. I
Yeah.
apologize.
It's okay. No.
if it's not, so here's what I'm asking. If it's not ethnic. and
What do
it's-
you think American ethos
and
is?
it's
Do you
not-
have any American ethos?
And it's not cultural.
Well, I
and
said
it's not,
it is cultural.
it's cultural.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the cultural things? What is American culture?
Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, doing things that work, ingenuity, discovery.
Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness,
Wait, what do you think American ethos
and
is?
what was the other thing you said?
Ingenuity?
Ingenuity.
Who's some of them?
So as long as
Do you
none
reject these as part of the American
so,
ethos?
I do. So as long as none of these life,
Kayak told me hotel prices just dropped. Now we can finally stop scrolling for travel hacks.
it's in the spirit of America.
Potentially, we would have to look at it in a relativistic, right? Like these ethos-like things, we have to understand like, what we're talking about. You have to give me an
That's
example.
what I'm asking you about, is what we're talking about. So if
Yeah.
any of these
What do you think
things,
is American?
well, so I think that what's core at the essential kind of product of Americanism is this idea of systemic liberalism. The system itself
What is
is what
systemic
American
liberalism?
is. What's that?
What is systemic liberalism?
Yeah, so that it's just the idea that like, there's a secular separation, there's systems in place within the constitutional confines, there's things which we're appealing to in law. I
you
don't
like
think that
America?
I don't think that liberalism and modernity is doing anything other than looking at those systems. I think that originally our founders wanted to have something which was much more akin to ethno-nationalism, for sure. I think that they wanted to have something that was much more akin to nobody voting in universal suffrage at all, because they didn't give anybody the right to vote.
Why?
So I don't think that those things were foundational to the American experience, because the founders didn't allow it.
Why did they?
Because they didn't want people to come over here who weren't Western English, basically.
That's not why.
Yeah, it is why.
No, you can read it in Federalist Number 2. Like the argument for suffrage is very clear from Hamilton.
Okay, wait.
On
Have
suffrage.
you read the Anti-Federalist Papers?
No.
Do you realize there's Federalist Papers, there's the Anti-Federalist Papers?
Yes.
These were compromises which were made from the original Articles of Confederation.
What did suffrage mean to the
Originally, the 39, I believe it's 39 out of 50 delegates who signed the Constitution, only 3 were deists. Most of them were Protestants, loyalist Protestants, by the way. And on top of all of that, most of them wanted only white states and made it very clear they only wanted white states. They put that into the very ethos of what they considered Americana. Do I think that modern liberalism is looking at any sort of people group? No. Is modern liberalism looking at any sort of like cultural environmentalism in order to like say, hey, this is what America is? No. All you can appeal to is systems. That's it. That's all you have is a system. Liberalism is a system of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and ingenuity. What the fuck that means? Doesn't even mean anything.
So, Rabbit?
Of course.
Just what?
What do you
What
mean?
is life, liberty, and my life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? I could completely amend the First Amendment and still do all of those things.
I think the issue is that most of the country would oppose you amending the First Amendment
So?
because the First Amendment is it's foundational to what makes America great.
So what? So what if most of the country opposes it? It's built into liberalism. If all it is
What matters if the whole
opposition.
country opposes it is because like America is this consensual emergence of a bunch of people that
Uh-huh.
believe in the same.
And what if we decide that we don't believe in the First Amendment anymore and amend it? What's
Do
un-American
you
about
not
that?
believe in the First Amendment
That
anymore?
has nothing to do with the argument. What is
Sure does.
un-American about amending the First Amendment?
Well, again, American is this ethos. It would be technically constitutional, but I would argue that it would be a bad constitutional move, and I think it would violate the Founding Fathers. And I think the Founding Fathers were onto something when they made that first separation of free speech, and
Well,
separation of church
okay,
and state.
should we adhere to everything the founders said or no?
No, not
Well,
necessarily.
then who cares if we violate it?
There's
Who cares?
What do you mean, who cares?
Yeah, but if you're like, look, if you violate the things that the founders wanted, that's not un-American. But this is un-American because it might violate what the founders wanted. You're in contradictions. P
These are
not
not
P.
contradictions. Like pluralism allows for competing values, right? Obviously, right? And so what you're kind of doing right now is you're sitting here and you're being like, well, there's two children. They're your children on one side and your husband's on the other side.
Yeah.
Who are you picking? And let's say I pick the two children.
Yeah.
You're going, why do you hate your husband? And I'm saying, that's not what's happening here
I don't even
at
know
all.
that. First of all, that's not the analogy. The analogy would actually be this. You have your husband and your children on both sides. You pick both. This other guy has his husband and children, and he doesn't pick both.
That's not how pluralism and monism work.
Wait a second. As long as you're saying that both of these sets are both moral behaviors because you have an amoral system, meaning you wouldn't restrict either of these things.
That's not necessarily, we absolutely restrict people's behaviors, and we often restrict people's behaviors for the benefit of the state, right? Laws exist.
And who makes them?
The people that we elect.
I
Congress.
see. So if we elect people who voted different laws, how's that un-American?
So it would be against the American ethos if a whole bunch of Christian nationalists, for example, convinced people that we should actually reduce things like liberty. I think that we would be moving away from
You
the
wouldn't be
American
reducing
ethos.
liberty.
Absolutely.
It would just be a different kind
If
of
you start
liberty.
imposing church into state, for example, and the only religion that you can practice is
Yeah.
Christianity,
Yeah.
that would be violating liberty.
How, if we amend the process, how?
Even if you amend the process, so you can amend the process to make us a less free nation.
So,
but what I
yeah.
would say is that would be wrong. That would be un-American. Yes.
How?
Because America is built on life and liberty.
America is built on the fact that you can amend America.
No, America is built on
Why do we have an amendment
Why,
process then?
why wouldn't TJ, when he's writing the Declaration of Independence, why wouldn't he, for example, say, America is just what we vote for. It's just like consensus stuff, man. It's just like loosey-goosey. He says specifically an ethos that drives the dream, right? And you're saying, well, this ethos, this dream, it's just silly. It's nothing. I mean, it's just not nothing, right? It makes me go,
It's
oh, do you hate
foundationally
America?
on liberalism, on the liberal view, right?
So you think America's
It's
nothing?
built.
Let each other finish. please.
It's not built on any sort of ethnicity. It's not built on any sort of cultural union.
Well, I did say culture.
Well, but you said life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Is that not, cannot not be cultural values?
Yeah, no,
Why not? What's
because
cultural
what?
values?
What does it mean?
What's an example of a cultural
Well, what
value?
the fuck does it mean? Let's
What's
start
an
with that.
example of a cultural value, if not something like life and
A
liberty?
unison of cultural values are usually foundation to ethical systems.
No, they're not.
Cup Noodles Protein has 16 grams of protein in all the comfort of cup, so you're ready for this whatever. Or this whatever. And this whatever.
Irish, sorry, you're Irish. That's an Irish cultural value.
Yeah, so I think that Irish cultural values would, again, revolve around foundationalism,
Like
religious
what?
ethical systems.
Like what?
Well, for Ireland, I think what the Protestant Catholic.
So the cultural value is of being Irish is being Catholic.
I think that there's a union between the people group and the ethical foundations.
So
Yes.
how are Irish people different than British people who are also on the back of Anglican or
Well,
Catholic?
because they're not. So England has a completely different set of people groups which come from Britannians. The Britannians came in, settled all of England. When the church came in and then they separated into Anglican, they have now a completely different set of value structures than other places do, including
Would you call it
Western Europe.
Anglican?
What?
The British cultural value? So the
Well, I
only thing
would
that
say-
makes British and Irish people different is one's
No,
Catholic
I
and
said
one's
different people
Protestant.
group. Skill me on my
What's the cultural value for Irish people?
skill me on my position real quick.
I'm asking you actually to steal my mind because you're insisting that when I list these ethos,
How
there's
can I
nothing
skill me in your
empty.
position when you're asking me questions?
I'm asking you questions because you seem to be unsatisfied with the answers that I
Yeah.
have supplied.
People
because you're
group?
not granting me. Just
People
wait, just
group
wait,
plus
just wait.
ethical
If you're
system.
if you're gonna get us on interrupting, it has to be mutual.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I gave you an example of a couple of cultural ethos, and you said, "What? This is nothing. It doesn't mean anything." And so then I said,
Hold on. Let
so then I
her
said,
finish.
"Can you give me an example of, let's say, Irish cultural
Okay,
ethos?"
sure.
And hold on, and you said Catholic, and I said, "What makes them different then from just another group of people that are also
They
Catholic?"
have
There's-
different set values.
Like what?
Like, for instance, they have different religious foundationalism. They have different values in their society that
What
they
is an
honor.
Irish cultural value? Give me one.
Not life, not liberty, not pursuit of happiness. How am I wrong?
I don't know. I'm not Irish.
Well, I don't know.
So
If it's
Irish just values
if
is
it's
just
isms,
Catholic?
if it's just isms of like, a cultural value is life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, then it's like, okay, then cultural values are also just not life, not liberty, and not pursuit of happiness then? Does that make any sense to you?
That's not what anyone's saying. I'm literally
It is
just,
what you're saying.
It's not.
Let each other finish, please.
I'm just asking you for a single example of an Irish
Yeah,
cultural
when you're
value,
talking,
and you're just saying,
Let each other finish,
and you're
please.
just saying Catholic.
Uh-huh.
So what's an example of an Irish cultural value?
So, do you agree that Catholic would be an example of an Irish cultural
I
value?
wouldn't say it's unique to Ireland, no.
So, why would it need to be
Well,
unique?
we're talking about
Is
Ireland.
life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness unique to America?
So are you just saying that cultures don't really exist? They're just the religions? There's no difference
No,
between
what a culture-
Irish people
Let each
and
other finish.
and
Let each other
another
finish,
and
please.
another group that's Catholic as
What a
well,
cul- what a-
like Spanish
yeah.
people?
So what a culture is going to be the grouping of the people, the consideration of the value group of those people, and the foundations of those people.
So what's an example of an Irish cultural ethos?
Catholicism,
So how is that different than Spanish people who are also Catholic?
because they have a different people group,
So what emerges that's different between these two groups?
language, customs, orders,
Yeah, values.
not just values. No,
Of
they
course
can
not.
have-
Of course not just
They
values.
can have, actually, they have a lot of shared values.
Sure, of course, yeah.
But again, you have to take the people group, then you have to take social orders, then you have to take the foundationalism in order to create culture. For you're saying life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Now, I gave you concrete examples of cultural values. Can you tell me what this means? What
Sure.
does that mean?
So if we're talking about the culture of people,
Uh-huh.
I think one of the relevant things for the American culture might be, not excluded to, the founding fathers and what they thought. You know, the founding of the entire nation kind of matters. So in the Declaration of Independence, for example, Thomas Jefferson outlines life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that is a unique thing, a unique hallmark of being
Jefferson
American.
didn't sign the Constitution.
That doesn't mean that he didn't write the Declaration of Independence. We're talking about the Declaration of
The
Independence.
Declaration of Independence was a propaganda piece built on an axiom which said under God, right?
So as an American, you just don't care about the Declaration of
I'm
Independence.
saying that when we're talking about foundationalism, the reason I bring
We're
up
not
that
talking about
Jefferson didn't
foundationalism.
sign the Constitution, we are. We're
Nope.
talking about value structures. You're saying that
I'm
life,
trying to
liberty, and
figure out-
pursuit of
Let him
happiness,
finish.
you're saying life, liberty, pursuit of happiness is the foundation of Americanism.
Nope.
Then what is?
What is the foundation? It's the foundation of America is the founding fathers. It's the Constitution, it's the Declaration of Independence, it's the
Systems.
entire idea.
It's systems.
Well, it's systems and it's ethos.
Well, you see what I mean though? That's circular.
It's
You
not-
say life,
how is it
liberty,
circular? What's the
life,
circle?
liberty, pursuit of happiness, that is not the foundation of America. Right?
I suppose they can be foundations in that, like, they're irreducible. Life, liberty are kind of irreducible
Why couldn't they be reduced?
because it's going to become circular. Like most things will become circular. Say you have a culture that values work ethic.
Yeah.
How do you reduce that? What does that mean?
But that people work really, really hard.
Yeah, isn't that kind of just like, you're just kind of
Yeah,
saying the
that's a
same thing.
heuristic,
So
sure.
it's circular.
I'm not sure that it's circular, but
How
it's
is,
a heuristic.
how is saying work ethic is people work hard, not circular?
Well, you could give qualifiers for what hard work is.
Well, you didn't. You just
I
said
don't need
hard
to.
work
You
is.
asked me how, and I explained
Okay,
it.
so this is
now,
one of the
when
keys
we're talking
of.
about foundationalism, you said life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, but then said that that's not a foundation, and then only pointed to
I
systems.
said it's no. I didn't say it's not foundation. I said it's
Okay.
not foundationalism. Because when I'm hearing that, and I could be wrong,
Uh-huh.
when I hear foundationalism, I'm assuming that you mean the philosophical framework.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I'm saying foundational,
So
I just
what's
mean
the philosophical
essential.
framework of the United States, other than a system?
I'm not. So when I'm saying the cultural ethos,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the philosophical framework necessarily.
Shipped same-day delivery gets that it's not just any mascara, it's your favorite. So go ahead, lock in.
Which people want to change free speech?
Who cares? What would
Me.
make it? What would make it immoral?
Well, the context and the individual who's doing it might make it immoral or not.
Yeah, but in and of itself, it's not.
It might be, right? Things are relative.
Okay, so in and of itself is not relative anymore because it's just in and of itself.
So I am a moral objectivist and a relativist, right?
What?
I
You're a
believe,
P and a not P?
no, I believe in that morals are objective,
Uh-huh.
but also that they are relative. This is standard. This is like Aristotle stuff.
What the fuck? What?
Okay, so stealing is wrong.
Uh-huh.
However, the guy whose family's going to die if he doesn't steal, relatively, contextually, might be okay for him to steal in that situation, right?
We're just talking about pluralism.
What's the competing values here?
Because under pluralism, what you're saying is that there's many pathways to get to what the spirit of the thing is.
That's not what pluralism is.
It is.
No?
Okay, what is it?
Okay, I wrote it down because it's
I can roll it if you-
it's multiple irreducible competing goods in moral pluralism.
Multiple what?
Irreducible competing goods.
Meaning that there's multiple pathways to get to somewhere.
No, that
No.
means, for example, that you have two moral systems that are both good, so
Uh-huh.
justice and mercy.
And there's multiple ways to use them to get to the thing we're trying to get to?
Nope.
No.
In this case, they're competing against one another. So in the case, for example, of somebody who's cheated on his wife,
Uh-huh.
there's morals of justice that we would want to uphold, but there's also maybe morals of mercy
Uh-huh.
or union of family. And so to make a decision, there isn't an obvious correct answer between justice or mercy. Usually we have to do some type of balance between the two.
Or we could do no type of balance and utilize one in order to get to the same objective as the other.
What's the objective
So for
here?
instance, if we wanted to like prosecute a guy for a crime, we could say, we're only going to prosecute him on this crime based on justice. That could be one value set which we adhere to, right?
Yeah, sure.
We could also appeal to something else like dignity. I don't know. Let's just say we put that up and
Sure.
say, that's what we're going to use instead. Well, the justice people and the dignity people, right? Neither one of them are wrong, and they're both going towards the same goal, which is execution of guy just, or execution of guy good, or execution of guy fine.
Well, I guess if the goal, if you want to make this like pluralist, I guess if you're
Because it is,
Are
it's
you a virtue
pluralism.
ethicist?
Yes, of course.
You're a virtue ethicist?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to basically utilize and.
Well, I'm a Christian ethicist, but virtue ethics is involved, yes.
Okay, gotcha. So in the case of, why are we here? Yes, we were
Because
talking.
we're talking about systems. How is
Systems.
the United States something other than just a system? You said in and of itself, if we change the First Amendment, that would
So
not be immoral.
you don't think
It would be
America is
amoral.
Let me try to
anything-
finish, please.
So you don't think America is anything but its system? There's nothing else that makes America unique that you can point to and say, that's America?
Under the liberal view, no.
Your view, I'm asking your view.
Yeah, well, under my view, I think that there was once upon a time a powerful idealism which was founded around Christian ethics that was foundational to America, which is now basically destroyed by
Foundational
modern
as in
liberalism.
founding fathers or foundational in real life?
It was foundational to the moral character of the people who lived here.
So then why did they write it out in the federal papers?
Right, what out?
The church from statecraft?
They didn't.
Yeah, they did.
No, they didn't. They
Yep.
separated in the First Amendment only that the federal government couldn't pass a religion on the people, but under the 10th Amendment, states could still maintain their religions.
And then most states came to agree that actually the federal precept was better, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, what happened actually was a lot of states were looking at moving back towards that, which is why this whole idea of the 14th Amendment being reinterpreted the way that it was to say states couldn't do that happened.
I feel like we have a very different understanding of suffrage.
That's not suffrage, that's the 19th Amendment.
14th Amendment?
Yeah, 14th Amendment, I think, is citizenship. It's about birthright
Right, you're right, it's
citizenship.
about birthright citizenship.
Yeah,
Yeah,
The
you're correct.
14th Amendment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, the 14th Amendment prohibits states from infringing on religious freedom.
Happy
By the
Friday,
First
baby.
Amendment, through the due process.
Read the 14th.
Uh,
Read it.
I just did, but
By working harder than you, Mr. Epstein.
I just wanted to read the amendment, but I think that that's the case.
Yeah.
Besides, even if it wasn't, it's not done for you. You didn't remember.
But wait, it is, so the idea of remembering isn't what matters in a conversation of like which idea is more true, right?
Yeah, hang on.
So it's not about me
Let him
getting it
read the
done.
amendment.
I don't know why you said that. Aren't we trying to talk about ideas here?
Yeah.
So whether I remembered or not, like poo-poo for me, I should have remembered 14th Amendment. But if the 14th Amendment says what I'm suggesting, that's point to my ideas,
Thank
not
you.
me
there's
getting
different
away.
clauses.
Yeah.
Should I read all
Yes.
the clauses?
Yes.
Okay. One, citizenship clause.
Yes, there we go.
It declares that anyone born or naturalized in the United States is a U.S. citizen, including formerly enslaved people.
Yep.
Overturned the Dred Scott versus Sanford decision. Number two, due process clause. It says states cannot deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law.
So I was right.
This protects individuals from unfair state government actions. Clause 3, Equal Protection Clause. It requires states to provide equal protection of the laws to all people. This clause became the foundation for many civil rights decisions,
Right.
including Roe v. Wade, Brown v. Board of Education, Obergefell versus Hodges.
So these were all
Sorry,
interpretations
what
of the
are-
amendment. There's nothing in there about religion.
You're right, but you said that that was the 14th Amendment was saying that states could have their own unique religion, but in fact,
No, that's the
not-
10th Amendment.
Wait, why were you citing the 14th Amendment?
Because I was telling you that most of the reason states wanted to move back to the idea of religiosity. It was through the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, which had nothing at all to do with religion, had to do with birthright citizenship.
And due process.
They focused on that, and here's how they did it. What they were saying was, basically, states aren't going to be able to tell anybody who is or isn't a citizen. Okay, they're not going to be able to do that anymore, and it needs to be uniform. So what happened is the Supreme Court began to rule that, oh, well, since it has to be uniform, we'll apply the First Amendment there too. This is way, way, way late in the game, though. Okay. Early Constitution, remember at this time, your founders are all dead, right? All these people are dead. They didn't want anything to do with that. They wanted the states to be able to make those prospective decisions themselves, which they were doing.
Sure, so there was a compromise, particularly the compromise was because they needed to unite the colonies, but a lot of the colonies had a lot of different predilections about how to run statecraft, right? And so one of the reasons why they wrote out separation of church and state at a federal level, but allowed states to maintain it, is because they wanted states to still join. It was very important to them, particularly since the revolution was about to happen, that they had the states
Yeah, none of that's
unify
in
them
dispute.
with one another. Well, again, so the 14th Amendment none of that proved that you were right
Yes,
at all.
it did. 100% did.
And it has nothing to do with religion.
That was my point, not yours.
I
That
never-
was my point.
I never said the 14th Amendment had anything to do with religion.
You did. You
No,
said,
I said the
yes, you
First
did.
Amendment. I haven't written, I've only.
And I
read
said,
the
no,
First
it was
Amendment.
citizenship. And you were like, no, oh wait, it is citizenship. And then Brian, he did a quick Google search, and what he was reading was an interpretation of it, and he read the actual amendment. No, I was correct.
I've never denied that it was about citizenship. I said, what does the 14th Amendment have to do with
You
religion?
said, read it so that favors Andrew, but it did favor me, because I was right.
Well, he started reading it and had nothing to do with religion. It had everything to do with like equal liberty.
It was the opposite.
What you up to today? I'm good as well. Tomorrow's my birthday. Excited.
What? No, he was not.
Yes, what was the first thing you read, Brian?
Okay.
It was the citizenship clause.
Mm-hmm.
There's the due process clause.
No, before that, the first thing that you read.
Oh, the first one. Before I looked it up
Yep.
again. Oh, that the 14th Amendment prohibits states from infringing on religious freedom by applying.
Thank you.
The first-
Infringing on religious
by-
freedom.
Thank you. He was saying that the 14th Amendment was about religion. I said, no, it's not. That was
No.
literally about citizenship.
Okay.
I can look stuff up for you too.
I appreciate
It's
that.
fucking crazy.
Wait, nothing crazy's happened here.
Yes, it has.
So would you agree that in this conversation, I brought up the First Amendment around religion? You have brought up the 10th and 14th to justify why actually the states were given power to decide their own
No,
religion.
just the 10th. The 14th was how it
So
was
why'd you bring up the
reinterpreted to
14th?
get away from the idea that states could have their own religion.
Okay, go.
Sleep is very important. Hope you have a good rest.
One moment. All right, the 10th Amendment. The power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
Which is why, post-foundation,
Just state power. So none of that is states establishing a religion.
no,
This
the
is just
federal,
saying the federal government respects the state's right to make certain decisions. Like in suffrage, the state reserved the right to decide who are the people, right?
how many states maintained a state religion post-constitutional ratification?
I believe all of them did initially.
Then what is your argument?
My argument is that
Yeah.
the states are
Thank you,
not
thank you.
America.
Appreciate that.
The founding fathers.
Then what is
are.
America?
Well, the founding fathers are probably a lot closer than what Maryland thought.
That's not Maryland. The states.
Yeah, well,
The
Maryland
states
is Maryland
would be all.
is Maryland a state?
But
Yeah.
all states is different than one state.
Sure, and yet all states felt that religion and church should unify, that they should have a state religion, that there should be a test for religion, and
Tomorrow. getting ready for it though.
explicitly that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion and prohibit the free exercise
That way
thereof.
the states could do it, yes.
They were not saying what the states were going to do. They were saying America,
Uh-huh,
which is federal,
yeah. No, it's also state, which is why we have the 10th Amendment,
America is federal government.
and state government.
So Maryland is America.
America's a
Pretty sure I turn 35 tomorrow.
Yeah.
great, and is that state government allowed to do all the things that the federal government can't do? That's not in the power of the federal government via the 10th Amendment?
What matters more to what
Now, what
Americans-
matters is answering my question. Is
What matters-
Maryland allowed to do whatever Maryland wants to do under the 10th Amendment as long as that's not in the hands of the federal government? As long as those aren't things which are allocated to the federal government, can Maryland do what it wants?
By and large, as long as it's not violating any of the
Great. So then,
Constitution.
Each other finish.
great. So if that's the case, then there was actually no reason at all why states could not have their own state religions, and they did.
So what do you think is more important for America? What a state did, like
Getting up there in age.
was wrote into the founding documentation.
The founding fathers,
Yeah, some people say that.
Its ability to make decisions.
AI can't shred.
Well, I broke my knee a few years ago, and that set me back in the health wise. So if I hadn't broke my knee, I feel like I'd be a lot healthier. But so my main aches and pains are in my knee, but I got neck pain too sometimes. That's the only pains I have so far though.
nationalism
That's my
is
question.
un-American.
That's my question to you. What matters more for America, the American ethos, understanding America as a country, what Pennsylvania did at the founding of America, or
Yeah.
what the American founding fathers?
I used to skate, and then I was homeless for a little while, and someone stole my skateboard, and then I broke my knee, and I haven't skated since.
As the
Under
federal
the 10th Amendment,
Constitution?
yes.
No. No,
Yes.
hold on. You're equivocating again.
How?
You're being naughty because you're pretending like what we're talking about is now statecraft, that Pennsylvania policy was valid under the Constitution. But that's not what I'm saying.
What are you
I'm saying I'm asking you about the American idea,
Okay.
the idea of America.
The system.
What matters more to the history and understanding of America as a nation?
Both.
Which matters more?
That's,
Yeah, so you're saying they're equal.
when you say,
Pennsylvania matters
when you
just
say-
as much as
when
the
you say
founding fathers.
more or
which is
less,
fine. It's just absurd.
absent, how is it absurd? The system doesn't work unless you have the state governments. It doesn't work.
That's not what anyone's saying. No one is denying that.
So how could it be more important what the founders did when it was intricate that the state had the rights?
To America as an idea, I
Yeah.
think what the founding fathers write kind of matters, like the most. Yeah,
Why?
because they're founding the federal government. They're founding
Based
the
on a
nation.
compromise with the states.
Yeah, but they're founding a nation.
Based on the states.
But the nation is not Pennsylvania. The nation is
The
America.
nation is a collection of states.
So why is the case that if all the states had all these religious practice and all
Yeah.
these religious law,
Yeah.
why didn't the federal government, if they wanted to unify them, why didn't they just write in?
Yeah, that's the worst. Fucking like, or like fucked up curbs, like, you know what I mean? Hit those and you fucking fall straight on your whatever shin.
Some wanted to be Catholic, some wanted to be Quakers. So they gave them the 10th Amendment. And the 10th Amendment said that they could do that shit.
Yeah, I felt like skateboarding was too dangerous to keep doing as I got older. So now I pretty much just ride bikes or my electric scooter.
To be.
That's not true. Actually,
That was the compromise.
So when
yes,
the first,
yes,
no,
it was.
So
Yeah.
no, hold on. The
Okay.
compromise here
Uh-huh.
is that states are allowed to make certain rules of law within state that are not within the federal purview. That is the compromise, right? Yes.
That's one compromise.
Okay. Okay. I don't know why you're interjecting there at all. Thank
Because
you
it
for the
matters.
clarification. This is like being like, there's 3 ways of feminism, and I'm like, there's 4, and you're like, 3's within 4. It's like, okay.
No,
thank
it's
you.
nothing like that.
It's
It's like
like
saying
identical to
this.
that.
It's like saying the states, the reason that this compromise happened in the First Amendment is because a Catholic state didn't want the federal government to tell them they had to be a Protestant state.
So why didn't
But
they just have
they did
Christian?
want the federal government to say that they could have a Catholic state. They did under the 10th Amendment.
So why is it the case that within like the first federal address The states were extremely upset because they mentioned nothing about God. There was no establishment of America as a nation of God. There are ways, for example, that they probably could have compromised between all of the religions so that it wasn't saying a Catholic leader, but just saying a Christian leader, right? They could have done that, but they didn't do that explicitly to the upset, actually, to the upset of the religious leaders, to the upset of some of the founding fathers.
It's because...
So why did they do that?
Because Protestants didn't consider Catholics to be Christians. That's why.
That's not why.
It is why.
No, the TJ writes about this. The reason why, right, and you have this in the Federalist Papers, the reason why is because they were breaching away from a king who was also a spiritual leader, right, in the UK, and they had a huge issue with that. They viewed this blend of church and state, especially at a federal level, as a problem. I suspect if you go into it, a lot of the founding fathers thought that all the states shouldn't have a state level religion. They just weren't going to comment on that because they needed to unify the countries.
Incorrect.
Over time,
the
colonies adopted the exact same framework.
There was a couple of them that didn't want to.
Let each other finish.
So first of all, there was a couple of them who didn't want to. That's true. But the thing is like the entirety of the federal government. Well, I'm talking about there was a couple of founders who didn't want states to have a religion. That's what I'm specifically
You're talking about the
referencing.
deists.
Not just the deists. There was others who weren't deists, but by and large, most of them were fine with the compromise.
So a majority of the founding fathers.
Is it my turn now? So here's what actually happened, because since you have revisionist history that I don't know what you came up with.
Okay.
You couldn't say in the First Amendment that this is to be a Christian nation specifically, unless you gave a specific denomination, because denominations did not recognize other ones as being Christian. So what they did instead was they said, look, Congress is not going to make an establishment of a religion, period. We're going to leave that to the states. And then they put in the 10th Amendment. That's exactly what the states did. They put in their own religions.
Why could they have, so why did they ban religious test clauses? You could easily make religious test clauses.
They still have them in almost every state.
No. At a federal level, it's Article 6. It's explicitly banned. No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States.
Because there could be instances where you had people who were representatives of states who for some reason needed to operate at the federal level, right? They didn't want to be like, hey, you're a Catholic, so your oath is no good here. Or you're a Protestant, so your oath is no good here. Or you're this, so your oath is no good here. That was part of the compromise.
Why didn't they just use the Apostles' Creed? Both Protestants and Catholics at the time acknowledged the Apostles' Creed.
Because they didn't recognize each other as Christians, so
that doesn't matter. They both recognize the Apostles' Creed isn't Catholic or Protestant. It's just Christian, right? Whether or not they would fight about who's a heretic or not. Why not, if you want a religious test clause that compromises between these two religions, why didn't they just write in the Apostles' Creed? I'm sure they were familiar with it.
Because they didn't recognize each other as Christians, meaning at the federal level, if you swore in as a Catholic, let's say, right, in order to fucking, I don't know, help with some piece of legislation or do something that you weren't, you were supposed to do at the federal level, the Protestant nations or states might be like, we don't recognize that because that's an oath of a Catholic. So at the federal level, they had to stay secular.
Would have said that the Apostles' Creed is Catholic?
What does the Apostles' Creed have to do with anything we're talking about?
The Apostles' Creed is like one of the central creeds to like what we say as Christian.
So what? That has with what I'm saying.
Of course it does. Why would, so you said if a Catholic takes the Apostles' Creed
why
test,
why
would a Protestant
why did the federal government, it was not within the federal purview to make the determination of getting the states to compromise on the fucking Apostles' Creed. It was under their purview to say, hey, what we're going to do is make it so that you don't have to swear any oaths from the Catholic or Protestant perspective, but rather we'll leave that to the states. The states can make it so that you can swear that you're a Protestant, or you can swear that you're a Catholic, or you can swear this, or you can swear that. It was up to the states prospectively under the 10th Amendment.
Right, but at a federal level, it was barred. And you're saying there isn't a world.
Nobody's disputing that.
Hold on.
We're just like going in a circle.
We can keep going in the circle, but I'm not going to let this point go because I think that one of the issues is that what you're trying to do is say, well, because the states had this rule, that means that was the founding of America. And it's like, no, the founding fathers knew that this existed, knew, for example, the Apostles' Creed existed, and despite all of this, despite the standard of all of the states utilizing a religious test, they rejected. Not only did they reject it, they explicitly wrote it in Article 6 that no test can be utilized, despite the fact that the founding fathers were pretty smart. I imagine if they wanted a religious test in there that could satisfy both Protestants and Catholics, they probably could have found it, like the Apostles' Creed.
So your whole position is Why didn't the founders try to find some way that all of the different religious denominations could agree to some creed and enshrine it in the First Amendment? That's your argument?
My argument would be if they wanted a blending of church and state, they were pretty intentional to go out of their way to ensure there was no blending of church and state.
Except they gave the states the 10th Amendment so that they could blend the church
They
and the
can't
state.
tell the states what to do. That was part of the colony deal.
No shit, that's my point.
But at a federal level, they went above and beyond to explicitly bar this.
They went above and beyond to make the compromise that each single state could have their own religion if they wanted it, and the federal government wasn't going
Would
to tell them
not.
what that had to be.
Religious clause, would not.
Yes.
Would
That
not.
way, that was the compromise. Federal government can't tell us what our religion's going to be.
Why are you spurting out
And
that?
the feds were like, okay, we can do that.
Do you think the founding fathers were like maybe a little bit thoughtful and intentional, that they like worked pretty hard to figure out the compromises?
Some of them were lazy fucking womanizing pieces of shit. But what's the point?
They could be
What's your point?
womanizing, and
What is your
also
point?
my point would be that if they wanted a religious test clause that could unify the religions, they probably could have found one that would have worked, because they found a whole bunch of
What?
other compromises.
What would it be?
The Apostles' Creed is one good example.
And okay, did Quakers follow the Apostles' Creed?
Yes, I believe the Quakers follow the
Did
Apostles'
Mormons?
Creed. I believe Mormons also follow the Apostles' Creed. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Let's find out if Quakers follow the Apostles' Creed. Can you look it up?
It's fucking real.
Look up if Quakers follow the Apostles' Creed. Let's
Do you know
find
what
out.
do you know what the Apostles' Creed is?
Are we pop quiz Kyla?
Well, but
Pop quiz Kyla?
are you saying you don't?
Yeah, most Quakers do not formally use or recite the Apostles' Creed. Really quick.
Hold
before-
on,
Wait,
hold
wait,
on.
really quick. We're coming up on the hour. Would you guys like to shift to a new prompt here in a few minutes, or?
Yeah, but
So you're telling me that they don't acknowledge the Apostles' Creed, or are you saying that they don't believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, that he died and rose again? That's the
Kyla,
Apostles' Creed.
they don't recognize it.
That's the Apostles'
That's
Creed.
it.
So
They
they
don't recognize.
Hold on.
I do have a bit of more information here. It says many Quakers, especially in more evangelical branches, would agree with much of the theology in the Apostles' Creed. However, they generally do not recite it in worship or
Reciting doesn't matter.
require members to affirm it. I don't know if that changes.
So as long as, so that wouldn't have been a unifier.
How would that not have been a unifier?
Because even if they theologically think it's sound, they're not going to recite the Apostles' Creed.
No, that's not what they said. They said they won't say it. They said that they don't require people to say it, which is not the same thing. I'm not talking about a catechism. I'm talking about a
Your entire
theology.
argument is why couldn't the founders find some compromise that every single independent Protestant and Protestant religion could agree to for some kind of creed for oaths?
My argument is that if
That's the
the founding-
dumbest thing I've ever heard. Here's what they did instead. They went, we're just not going to legislate any sort of formal religion on your states, and you can do that instead.
Classic Andrew, it's just absurd.
That
It's
is,
just absurd.
that's an actual absurd
It's not
position.
absurd. The founding fathers were pretty smart guys. I think that they could think about things. They wrote a lot. I think if they wanted to blend church and state nationally, they would have done
Can
so.
you
But
guarantee me-
instead, hold on, but
Go ahead.
instead, they explicitly wrote into the Constitution that they would not do so federally, and over time,
Yeah.
all states agreed with that and wrote out religious clauses.
What was the 10th Amendment for?
I don't know.
Okay.
We just hit the hour mark. Shall we?
You wanna tell me?
Shall we switch prompts?
The thing we've been talking about. for the
Yeah,
last-
well, I assumed that you were gonna give me more information about
I-
it.
what-
I don't know what you're doing right now, because I feel like we need to talk about these. Okay.
No, continue.
I'm gonna wait for his tantrum to be over, and then I'll go.
Okay, well, I'll let you know when it's over.
Okay, we're done? Or are you still tantruming?
Me just sitting here as a tantrum.
You like, we're throwing in Linda listening
I
to
just
like
act
in the
like
air.
this, that's
I'm
all.
doing cross eyes and like making fun
Well,
of me.
that was silly. It's silly to say that you think that the founders should have found some way that every single independent pan-Protestant religion would find some kind of unifying creed they would all just suddenly agree to, rather than them just saying, we're just not going to impose any religious standards on states. You guys can do it yourself.
Yeah, I think that if the founding fathers actually believed that the merging of church and state was important, they would have found a way to write it into the
They
Constitution.
did via the 10th
They did
Amendment.
not.
They did.
You know, allowing states to have choice and purview is not the same thing as writing.
Were states allowed to make their own religions or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with, for example, saying that the church doesn't get a hand in statescraft, which is written exclusively into the
Only at the
running.
federal level,
Yes.
because they they didn't have a unification for things like oaths and other things that all the pan Protestants would agree
couldn't think
to
of one.
at the federal
They just
level.
couldn't think of any. They were like, man, we really.
They argued
Hold
about
on.
it
This is your premise.
nonstop.
This is your premise. The founding fathers actually really wanted to write in merging of church and state. It was
No, they
something
didn't.
that they really cared about.
At the
but
federal level, they
couldn't-
didn't.
But they couldn't find a way to federally write these things in together. And so, don't interrupt me. And so instead, what they did is they wrote it out and they just let states do, so they could sneakily blend in their blurring of church and state. That's your argument.
Truly, your
Yes or no?
intellect
Is that your argument?
is dizzying. No, my argument is that
Are we getting personal?
that the founding fathers.
Are we getting personal? Because you said no personal when we started this. Do you want?
Wait a second.
You said my
yeah, you
intellect
can call
is
me,
dizzying.
Yeah, you can call me stupid. So the thing is like, I'm so curious about this that I actually don't even understand.
I just want to be
position now.
clear that we're breaking the rules
So
of
the
decorum by
federal,
your
so the federal
standards.
government, was that really harsh? Like, truly your intellect is dizzying?
I would
That's
say,
harsh?
I would say in
That's
general,
a movie line, by the
I
way.
would say in
from The
general
Princess
that if
Bride.
we want to have a good engagement back and
Yeah.
forth, we, for example, agreed to things like not getting personal.
That's not personal. It's from The Princess Bride. It's a joke.
So you only meant it as a joke. You were trying to call me stupid.
Well, this position's stupid.
Are you
And I
calling
can-
me
and I
stupid?
can
Because when you
prove
say my intellect is dizzying, it feels like you're
It
saying.
is dizzy.
So you think
but
I'm
the thing
stupid?
is here, I don't get.
I don't know why I would just
It's
own
like-
that you're insulting me.
It's
This
like
is so
you
crazy.
go, wait a second, Andrew. It would have been way better for the pan Protestant and Catholics at the federal level for them to somehow agree on some kind of
Didn't say
unifying
better.
creed,
Didn't say better.
or make more sense that they would agree to some sort of unifying creed, even though Protestantism can also change. You can have like a new denomination which pops up that doesn't agree with this. And so they're like, wait a second, instead of doing that, what we'll do instead is we'll leave it up to the prospective states, and then they can impose
Because
whatever religion.
we
Hang on,
secretly
Kyla,
want
calm
the
down,
blending of
Kyla,
church
calm
and
down,
state.
Kyla. I just want to finish. Okay? The states can blend and always were able to blend church and state.
Just watching this debate. How's your day going, man?
Was
So-
never in question.
So what is in question here is, by your logic, the founding fathers,
Yeah.
Dabs.
they actually secretly wanted the church and state to be blended, but they couldn't write it in because
Where
the
did
Christians.
you get that?
Your argument.
I
This
never
is-
argued that.
This is the implication of your
It's not
argument.
even the
Of course
implication
it
of
is.
it.
You're saying that actually the founding fathers, they did want the blend of church and state. Do you think that?
They wanted the states to be able to blend
Do you
church and
think
state.
that the founding fathers wanted America to have a blend of church and state? That they
Some.
wanted the
Well,
church to
it depends
help
on which
make
ones you're
state
talking
happen?
about. Some did,
You
some
said
of
the
them didn't.
majority. You said the majority of founding fathers.
No, the majority of the founding fathers who signed, I said, were not deep.
Same old, same old. Staying consistent.
Yeah, they were.
What you got going on, man?
Different denominations.
And do you think that those men of God couldn't have tried to, like, if they wanted to write in that the federal government has a blending of church and state, that they couldn't have found a way to possibly do that?
Or they just give it to the states prospectively, which makes more sense.
Why would they then explicitly write it out of the federal government?
Because they wanted it to go to the states specifically so that for purposes of things like oath keeping
Why
and
would
things
they
like
make a
this.
rule then that says states must maintain some form of Christian religion?
Because that doesn't mean anything. If you say you have to be a form of Christian,
How does that not
who
mean?
gets to make the determination of who a Christian is?
Usually it's going to be the Christian people of that state, right? How does
Exactly.
Wait,
That's my whole point.
It's not your
Exactly.
whole point. It's not your whole point.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
If the founders, if at the federal level they can't make a determination of who a Christian is or isn't, and that's why you leave it up to the state determines.
So by your implication, you're saying the founding fathers did actually want church and state to not be separate. However, they couldn't find a way to write it into the Constitution other than through the 10th Amendment, which doesn't even
You're
talk
getting one
specifically
whole
about.
part of this
Don't interrupt
wrong.
me. Don't interrupt me. You can come after. Just write it
Yeah,
down.
go ahead.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you're saying the founding fathers, by implication, they actually did want the church and state to be blended. They actually valued that because you're saying that they wrote it into the.
That's the vibe I love. Love people. I love when people are just chilling.
They just couldn't write it in within the first
I need more chill people around me.
in
Oh
church and
Lord,
state.
this is like the worst.
Did you know that home care makes a difference in people's lives? It's also a job.
We would chill mafia. Maybe that'll be my religion and my cult.
Well, since it's all pan-Protestantism, we can't figure out our foundationalism. We will take a secular at the national level. And what we'll do is institute the 10th Amendment, and each of you can in your own religions if you want to. That was the compromise. You know, it has nothing to do with the motivation of the founders at the federal level, wanting it, not wanting it, loving it, not loving it. It has to do. Okay, that.
No, it sounds even better. Nice. Now we're brainstorming. Now we're cooking.
Not. My argument is there's a compromise between the states and between the feds. And the compromise was that the feds were not going to tell the states what religions they could or couldn't have. Period.
And was the compromise?
And if we called it Temple of Chill, then maybe we could get some government funds to build a real temple. And we could do some old school architecture for that temple. That'd be dope. It'd be like what Scientology has going on at their building out here.
No, they wanted at the national level to adhere to the idea that only the states could impose whatever their religious value structures
I'm not
were.
saying that is it more reasonable to conclude that the founding fathers wanted a separation of church and state, or that they did not want a separation of church and state.
You have to explain, express at which level.
I'm assuming that if they felt it at the federal level, they probably felt it at the state level. I don't know why the founding fathers be like, I don't want it at the state level, but I actually do. You said compromise, right?
Jefferson didn't like that states had religions, and he made that clear.
These are
But
all
other,
good
other
ideas.
presidents made clear they were
These are
fine
all
with
good
it.
So the majority of the founding fathers, do you think that they wanted separation of church and state?
At the national level, that was the compromise, yes.
Do they want it though?
I don't know. I can describe to you
presumption?
each of their motivations.
What's your presumption?
Some of them did and some of them didn't.
Do you think most of them did or most of them didn't?
I don't know if it's most. Do
well,
you?
You said a majority of the founding fathers. Well, I would
deists.
say.
I said weren't deists.
No, you also said that they were loyal Protestant,
Yes,
good old
that's
Christian
true.
boys.
They were.
So my argument would be that these good old Christian boys
Yeah.
all agreed that separation of church and state mattered. That's why they wrote it into the Constitution.
At the federal level.
They didn't even prescribe states having a state religion. They just didn't take the states
That was
right.
the
they
compromise.
They just didn't take the states right away from them doing so. That's not the same thing.
So they allowed the states to implement their own religions.
At a state level, but they would not at a federal level.
Then what are we arguing here?
We're arguing about whether or not the founding fathers wanted a separation of church and state or not.
At the federal, okay, I don't know how else to make
Why
this
would they
clear.
want it not at the federal
At
level?
the federal level, they did not want a federal religion because states
Why?
did not make a religion.
Why didn't they want a federal
We're
religion?
compromising with the states.
Sure, but do you think that overall, if they didn't have to compromise, they would have preferred a federal religion?
Well, there wouldn't even, the whole framework of the nation would be so different, I don't even know how to speculate.
You're right, it
on
would be
that.
completely different America if we didn't have separation of church and state, because the founding fathers, despite mostly being Christians, just
Yeah.
being loyal Christians,
Yeah.
they understood the necessity of separation of church and state. And
No,
most
it
of
would
us
be
founding
different in
fathers.
America because there wouldn't then be states' rights, the 10th Amendment, there wouldn't be, the whole system would be totally different.
We're 10 minutes.
I don't have any idea what you're even
Look,
referencing.
if you want to like rewrite absurdism into it, that's totally fine. But it's pretty obvious that if the founding fathers wanted to have no separation of church and state, they could have done something. They could have employed in some direction.
I don't
And
even
it
know what
seems
she's
like-
arguing.
How about this?
You could steel man me and try.
Over time on this prompt.
You seem to be saying that,
You guys want to do
Was it the-
Well, I don't know.
was it the motivation, if it was the case, that there was no states? Would the founders have preferred no religion?
So I've made already an affirmative claim, which I said, well, the founding fathers, despite being dominantly Christian, despite valuing their Christianity, despite most of the nation being either Protestant or Catholic,
Yeah.
went out of their way to write religion out of a federal nation, grounding America at a nation level as a non-religious nation state. In fact,
Oh,
so
I see.
non-religious. So non-religious.
Here's the problem.
Hold on, I'm not done.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Really quick before you go, we are a bit over time on this prompt.
It does give them some time to tantrum, so you can read your TTS if you want.
Well, do you
What
guys?
tantrum? I'm just sitting here.
Your eye rolling and like getting upset, which is totally fine. Like it's an impassioned.
I actually don't understand what the
But
fuck
do you
you're even
guys wanna-
talking about.
That's kind of
Do
the.
you-
I really don't.
Do you guys want to continue on this prompt, or do you want to move on to something else?
I just want to speak to that specific thing you said. That's kind of one of my issues with that Andrewism is you're not attempting to understand what I'm saying in any way, and usually.
I just tried to steal, man,
Hold
and
on,
you cut
I'm
me
done.
off. When I was trying to steel man your position, you cut me
I
off.
corrected you because you were steel manning me incorrectly.
Okay, got it. So here's the thing.
Well, if you're going to steel man me, you should probably be correct.
Can we
and
agree
in
to,
a good
like-
faith conversation,
Yeah.
I want to understand
So-
you. You want to understand me. So let me summarize your position.
Okay, go ahead.
My understanding of your position is that you don't know. You're agnostic as to whether or not the founding fathers wanted, church and state to be blended. But you believe that essentially they allowed the states to do it so that the states could stay religious. And they wrote it at a federal level because they recognized that they would have to compromise, and they couldn't find a good compromisation amongst the states because they were of different religions. Correct?
No.
How is that incorrect?
Well, the first part is what you're messing up.
Okay.
It's irrelevant whether or not the signers of the Constitution themselves would have ascribed for a state religion or not.
I think the
What's
founding
relevant-
fathers' election is important.
What's relevant is what they actually did with the states. The state itself, the prospective states, are as much of import as the federal government. That's what anti-federalists thought. You have a federalist mindset for some reason. You keep on, I understand the disconnect. Disconnect is you keep thinking that federal systems are are more important than state systems.
No.
They're definitely
No.
not.
Finish.
They're, hang on, not only are they definitely not, but that's where the disconnect is. Here's what's actually happening. There was a compromise that was done. The compromise was that there was no possible way that Catholics over here were going to recognize the oaths of Protestants over there. Not if the federal government was making the demand that you had to be X thing in order to swear an oath or do a thing. So what they did instead was they said, what we're going to do is we're not going to implement a nationalized religion. The prospective states instead are going to be able to implement whatever religious institutions that they want. They were perfectly fine with them blending church and state. Yes, perfectly fine with it.
Do you think they preferred it?
Many of them, yes.
So why didn't they write it into the federal constitution?
I don't know how else to explain it. Like I
So
actually
you're just
don't.
saying
I
they,
think
the
I
meant?
don't even know how to explain it.
Maybe
any better
a
than
prompt
that.
switch. Maybe a prompt switch. I think we should
Well,
probably do.
I want to
How would I
clarify
ever
two
explain
things.
it?
I want to clarify.
Maybe a prompt switch could be good.
Well,
maybe
sure.
maybe
The issue is,
prompt switch.
I don't know if you want to have a good faith conversation or not. It seems like the answer is no. Because in a good faith conversation, we're both trying to understand the most coherent version of one another's opinions. We're trying to actually understand
Then
what
why
the
did you
person
just
is
ask
saying.
me explain it to me when I just explained it to you?
What?
You said, then explain to me why they did that. And I'm like, I just explained to you why they did that.
So again, then I was going to say my next argument against that.
Yeah.
Right? Which is that you're telling me that the founding fathers, in all of their intelligence, all of their battling, in their ability to do so much, like found America, they couldn't figure out a way to compromise amongst the religions if they actually all dominantly preferred a blending, a church and state blending. They just couldn't
did
figure
find
it
a
out.
way to do that.
So you're saying they actually did do that sneakily through the 10th Amendment.
It wasn't sneakily, it was upfrontally.
Why wouldn't they just write that in the First Amendment? Why would the First Amendment bar the union of church and state?
Because okay.
If they wanted it at a
At
federal
the
level, they
federal
could've.
level, what they did was they said, okay, we're not going to implement any religiosity on independent states. We're not going to do that ever.
Why?
Because each independent state gets to have their own religion as part of the compromise that they made with the federal government due to the Articles of Confederation.
Or. and
There's no
here's-
or.
Yes,
Have a
the
car.
There's
well, the or here is the more reasonable.
Just an ID, valid ID.
An explicit separation of church and state at a federal level
Yeah.
because that's what they wanted. They understood that when you blend church and state, it corrupts not only the nation, which they had just separated from a corrupted nation that was utilizing statecraft and religion, and they recognized that it also corrupted the religion, which there was many issues with the corrupted religion of the Anglican and then Catholic and then Anglican British church.
No, that's not what happened.
Okay.
What happened, first of all, they had not just done this, okay?
Okay.
They had the Articles of Confederation first. That happened first. And what happened is they were just not able to govern because each state was like a mini kingdom and they wanted their own currency and their own militaries. Okay, and so for like the common defense, they wanted to have some sort of federalism in order to do this.
Did they
So-
unify under one currency?
That was one of the primary reasons they wanted unification was because of the currency.
So why couldn't they unify under one religion?
Because what you wanted was you wanted to have trade between each state,
Yeah.
but when you're talking about their religions, this was pan-Protestant. So there was no unification there.
So they were willing to unify on a whole bunch of stuff, but they just couldn't, for the life of them, figure out a way to unify the religions, because they actually did want the church and state to be blended. They wanted the church to have weight and say on statecraft. They just couldn't write it in at the federal level, so they just let states
Well, who's
do it.
the church?
The church would be the Christian church.
Who?
Nice.
Christian church.
Who's that?
The Christian church.
Who?
There's multiple.
Yeah, I like how Canada has mushroom shops too. We don't even have that here in Portland. You would think that Portland would have mushroom shops, but we don't.
A lot of them had a lot of one thing.
Really?
Really.
Okay, so there's just like the Quaker state.
Maybe I should get my passport. Check out BC.
Lenny. Thing
Mormon
is,
state?
no. So the thing is like, look, when you look at it, because of pan-Protestantism, each state independently is going to have their own religion. That had nothing to do with them being able to coordinate trade under one currency.
So say if one of those states happened to be Muslim, do you think that they would have been like, woo, they get to have their own religion? Do you think that would have been okay? Or?
No, I don't think so. No.
So they did want a Christian nation.
Well, no, I think that they were banking on white immigrants not being Muslim.
Sure, but they probably did want a Christian nation. And they had some feelings about the Catholics.
Well, they really,
the
I
Protestants,
think that
but
they
recognized that they were more unique.
I think that they
pagan
just thought
religions.
that most of the immigrants coming in would be Western Europeans, and so not Muslims.
Gotcha. So they had no. So, but say the founding fathers did have an expectation that a branch or a sect of paganism was about to be popularized in America. They'd be okay with the state just being some pagan religion, some Nordic pagan religion that a bunch of white Europeans were appealing to.
There was, I don't even think that at that time they could have even
Sure.
envisioned that.
Hypothetically, though, if there was, would they have been okay with that?
I think that I don't think there would have been a state-federal compromise if that was the case.
AI can't fly, but it can help boost trajectory for more airtime.
in that you have to be a Christian government in some way. They probably could have found something connected amongst all the Christians to ensure
They just did
that
it
the
through
states could be
racialism.
Okay. Yeah, that's what you want to
Were they importing a bunch of brown people from Muslim countries when I wasn't looking or
Buying
something?
a bunch of black people for slaves, yeah.
You mean the Christians? The ones that they turned into Christians?
A lot of them had pagan religions and African religions that actually a lot of people, so...
And then they put them all in churches and made them convert.
Yeah, forced them to convert.
Yeah.
That worked super great. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
well, whether it worked or not, they still were banking on Christian, yes.
Yeah, they were forcing them in, but...
And by the way, they didn't
By
even
the
see
way-
blacks as being people at the time.
You're right. So one of the issues is, for example, they write about this. They don't want, for example, black people voting because some of the states were worried about other religions getting in. Yeah, because a lot of the black people held to pagan religions.
Wait, okay, who wrote about this?
I believe this would have been in like Connecticut. There was a bunch of issues specifically in Connecticut around suffrage of women and suffrage of black people.
When?
I think like 1818. I don't have it on the top of my head.
So long after what we're talking about?
Like 30 years after what we're talking
So
about.
long after what we're talking about?
Not real. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
really
Wait,
long
why would you
after.
think that that's not relevant?
Because how would that have any relevance?
The founding fathers at the time obviously would have known that the black slaves had their own religion. Wouldn't they be worried, for
You mean
example, that the
about
pagan
the
religion
slaves?
spread?
Why would they be worried about the slaves?
They were constantly worried about tyranny of any form. They were constantly worried about select interest groups rising up and taking away power from other.
That's why they put in the three-fifths clause.
Love that show.
Okay. Wait. What? Sorry. What are the 3/5 clause? Why don't you tell me? Or is that a pop quiz?
That black people only count as 3/5 of the vote?
Right. Oh, 3/5. I heard a different word. I heard I didn't hear 3/5.
Yeah, problem solved. And they were banking on whites coming in from basically Western European nations.
Right. So they actually were a little bit worried about black pagan tyranny. They just wrote it out of the Constitution.
Well, they were worried about southern states being able to outvote northern states.
They were worried in general. So goes back to suffrage, right? If you look, for example, at Hamilton's writing of suffrage, which is really important, it's one of the founding
I
documents.
don't know what the fuck this has to do with what we're talking about.
Voting?
Yeah, but what does it have to do with the fact that you still haven't acknowledged that the whole reason that there was this compromise which happened and that the federal government said, from our perspective, we're going to leave this up to the states via the 10th Amendment.
Because they-
It's literally because they wanted to allow the states to put in whatever religious
But
institutions
also
they wanted.
theoretically, no religious institutions, right? The Federalists.
No, they weren't. They
So the
didn't
federal
have the
government-
purview to tell the
Okay.
states that.
Yeah, so the federal government would have been opposed. Is that what you're saying? They would have actually been opposed to a secular state. Like a state just got rid of all of the religious clauses that it had. Would that be okay?
Under the purview of the 10th Amendment, states could do that.
Yeah, you're right. It's
And-
almost like the founding fathers didn't care about blending church and state. They actually cared about separation of powers. So if you want to ask me about the suffrage stuff, the reason why the suffrage stuff is relevant is because when they were talking about voting is really important as far as like stakeholders. This is what Hamilton and Madison talk a lot about, right? The voter
Okay.
has to be somebody who's a high stakeholder in the country. And they were constantly afraid that votes could get utilized in such a way that select interest groups could tyrannize other interest groups, right? Which is why they had lots of separations of power, like the separation of church and state,
At the federal level.
which they cared a lot about.
At the federal level.
You're right.
The thing not in dispute.
Yeah, so when we're talking, so the thing that's in dispute here is I'm saying America and the founding fathers
That's a good one,
wanted
too.
a separation of church and state.
At the federal level.
Yep.
So what?
I think the federal
This
level is
was
pretty
never
important.
in
Is
dispute.
America important? Is America federal?
It's both.
So what matters more when we're talking
There
about
is
like
no
federal
more. The
policy?
system completely doesn't work unless you have both state
Does the
and
federal
federal.
government have hierarchy over the state?
No.
Yes, on everything that the
No.
federal government has decided has hierarchy over
Yeah,
the
so
state.
so the federal government has hierarchy over the state. Over everything, the federal government has the powers of hierarchy over the state
Has
with.
decided to have
So
power
by
over
that
it.
same logic, does the state have hierarchy over the federal government?
No, because if the federal government, for example, decided to overimpose on the state, they would fight it in courts. But technically, the federal government has rule. It's obviously
No,
yes.
that's not the case. That's not even how the system works. The states, prospectively, can override the federal government on all sorts of issues. When it comes to the 10th Amendment, that's what it's there for. That's the separation of powers you're talking about.
Yeah, it's
what
one
you
of the
just said was
separation of powers.
incoherent. If it's the case that you say the federal government,
What's up, Jay?
yes, they have authority over the states based on everything they have the authority over the states with. It's like, sure, but the same thing applies to the state. What you're talking about, when you say more or less important, that's not even a coherent question. That wouldn't even be the same system. It would be a completely different system.
So if the federal government decides to go to war and draft people, can the states do anything about that?
Under the current law, I don't think they can.
Okay, gotcha. And if the federal government, for example, decided
watching
to
this
send the
debate.
National Guard into Minnesota, have they been able to do that?
Only to federal buildings, yes.
Well, there's more than that, but yeah.
No, where?
The National Guard has been set in to just control riots generally across
When?
California, but I mean this year.
Only to federal buildings.
I mean, they go into crowds and disperse crowds like outside.
In front of federal buildings.
Okay, gotcha. So the federal government just can actually impose into a state.
On federal property?
In like limited ways, yeah, of course.
Can the federal government go occupy the state building?
No.
Okay, then what the fuck are you talking about?
I'm talking about a hierarchy of two things. Number one, the American ethos,
Yeah.
right? This is where we all started. I was saying the American ethos is life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, ingenuity, creation, right? All these things.
Yeah.
And you said, where is that? And I said, well, in the Declaration of Independence is a start, and with the Founding Fathers' value.
No, I
is
didn't
a
say
start.
where is it. I said what is it?
You also said where.
Yeah, what is it?
And, okay, I'm not quibbling.
What is the philosophy of it? And you still haven't told me.
Well, you still haven't told me what an Irish ethos is. Because all these things are circular.
Well, I did.
Well, the liberty is the foundational.
Yeah, so you're just so liberalism is just a back to a system. And if it's just a reference to a system, and I can change the amendment.
Well, liberalism is a
and
system
hang on,
with a
and I can
collection of
change the
values.
system within the confines of liberalism, you shouldn't have an objection. Because if I could change the First Amendment, the only thing you would be to that I shouldn't is not the system, it's just your preference.
Well, I would be appealing to what the American ethos is. Yeah, I do not think America.
Which is what?
Free speech is one of them, right? The separation of church and state is the second one of them.
Also
Ingenuity.
amending the Constitution is one of them.
Yeah, with extremely high bar. And what's amazing is that Americans would probably agree with me that it would be un-American to remove free speech, right?
Unless we go 20 years in the future where they don't.
Those people aren't American.
Okay, Do you think that the
Wait, do you think most people would agree with me
Do you-
that free speech is American?
right at this current moment,
Do
sure.
you think most Americans listening would go, of course free speech is American?
At this
And in
current
the
moment,
future, 40 years from now, if our children don't believe that, they've lost what it means to be America.
Then how come they didn't have the same reference to it 55 years ago?
What do you mean? What?
Yeah, so how come it wasn't, if we're looking just 100 years ago, we're talking about things like the First Amendment,
They didn't
Second
care about free
Amendment,
speech.
various things like this. You could go into a Western town, they could strip you of your guns. That was totally legal. That was a violation of the Second Amendment, right? But the way,
So it was legal.
when you're talking about presentism,
So it was a violation of being America, but they could just physically do it?
well, at the time it wasn't ruled as a violation, was it?
Okay, gotcha. So, but do you think it's more American to have access to guns?
I think that when you say more American, it's incoherent, and here's why.
Of course not.
You're just focusing on what do present people within the liberal system think is American.
No, I'm actually.
Do you
critiquing
think in 1800 they thought it was very American to let women vote?
No, probably not.
Okay, do you think that right now, that if I asked, do you want to take the right of women away to vote, that people would say that that was un-American?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think they
thank
would.
you, thank you.
Wait, so do you
Thank
think?
you.
Wait, so you're just saying America's nothing? America doesn't mean anything.
From the liberal perspective,
No,
it's
from your
just a
perspective.
system.
No, from your perspective, America doesn't
Actually,
mean
you know
anything.
what? I guess from my perspective too, it is the case that liberalism, that the liberal identity, which is America, is just reduced to systems.
So America doesn't mean anything to you.
I think that it might have.
It's just empty.
If you had something, if you had some sort of like cultural glue, or you had some foundational glue, or something that we could appeal
There's
to,
no distinct American culture that we could point at.
point to it.
Not just point to, but see it historically.
Point to it.
I did. Life,
Where?
liberty, pursuit of
But
happiness, ingenuity.
those are slogans.
No, these are foundational values.
Then how is it that if I change, so in England, do they have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
I think they don't have those specifically, but they do seem to have adopted a lot of little things like free speech. They have like.
They don't have free speech.
Okay. I'm not getting into UK like.
You can go to jail for insulting someone via text message.
Gotcha. So you would say people don't value free speech.
I'm just asking if they have life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
I said no, they don't. That's they probably have different
Is
versions
America
of it.
the only place that has life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness?
No, I think lots of cultures can have
Which ones?
overlapping values.
Which ones?
I mean, the same way that you just said that the Irish ethos.
Just
Hold
tell me
on,
which
stop.
one.
The
No,
Irish-
you stop. Answer my
No.
question. Which one?
No, I'm going to
You're
answer
not
your
gonna
question.
answer
I
it.
am going to answer your question, but I'm going to answer the question the way that I would like to.
You're not going to answer it.
Do you just want to have temper tantrum after
I
temper
want you to
tantrum?
answer the question I'm asking.
Okay, I'm going to answer your question and then I'm going to have a meta conversation with you because I thought that we were going to have a good faith conversation because it's crazy. My favorite debate that I've ever had was with you.
The
But
one where
we,
you imposed a bunch
beforehand,
of rules in the hallway?
the one where we said, would you agree to being good faith? And you said, yes.
Yeah. So it's funny.
So you're just agreeing that you're being bad faith with me
Brian,
now?
Brian was there. That's not how the conversation went.
I said specifically that I was concerned about you making personal attacks about my husband and that
Which
you
I
were
didn't
not
do.
going to be good faith.
Yeah, but here's the thing that's funny about that. I went back and reviewed that conversation, right? It was no different than what I'm having with you right now.
It's
the only
completely
difference is that I'm actually holding you to the things you say.
The difference is that so for people who
So,
are unaware
yeah,
when I say bad faith, I just want to be
Forget
clear.
the Metacon.
Just
Answer
wanna
the
be
question.
clear.
You obfuscated.
No, I'm going to say
you're
that
not going to answer it.
I will answer it afterwards.
You're just not going to answer
Write
it,
it down.
period.
No, write it down.
Just answer the fucking question.
No, write it down and I'll answer it afterwards. You can be an adult.
That's
We can
good
do
faith?
this.
Is that good faith?
Yeah, it is good faith.
Good faith.
Yeah, I said I will answer your question afterwards. Write it down.
Just where else do they have life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness?
I imagine lots of countries
Where?
value things like liberty. I think most Western democracies value liberty, for
So
example.
Western liberal democracies have life, liberty, and pursuit of
I
happiness.
didn't say life, liberty, and pursuit. I said liberty. in
So
this case.
I didn't ask you about liberty. I asked you about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. What other nations have that?
For example, so they wouldn't have the exact language, but liberty is held by most Western liberal democracies. Life, for example, is also in some version of the way that they would describe it, also valued by most Western liberal democracies because America's so great, we kind of set the tone of what the ethos of a Western.
Cutwater. Real cocktails. Perfectly mixed.
How many hours has your team spent
Nope.
I want to finish.
No,
The thing
I
is
said
you
I was
didn't
gonna
actually
have
tell me if all Western
on.
nations
Did I
have
not
life,
just
liberty.
answer your question?
No. If you say
Yes, I
all
did.
countries have, because
I
this
did
is a
say all
contradiction.
countries. I did not say
All
countries.
Western. Western.
I said most Western liberal democracies
Okay,
share some
give
version
me
of these
one.
values.
Give me one
I
name.
said Canada.
Okay, Canada has life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Do they have free
No,
speech?
I said liberty.
Which I want a country that has life, liberty, pursuit of
I
happiness.
didn't say that every single country shares every
Does
single
any
cultural
country
value.
share that?
Yeah.
Which one?
So in the case of liberty,
No, all of them together.
no, all of them in the way that it's phrased is a uniquely American thing.
So, so just to
I
make
didn't
sure,
want to answer, did you?
I just want to make sure I got this right. Only in America can you pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of
That's
happiness.
not what I said, and you know that that's not
Then
what I'm saying.
where else
Okay.
can you do it?
Now we're going to have the conversation about good faith versus bad faith. So one of the things that has to happen when you have a good faith conversation is you have to actually try to understand the person.
You
So
can
for
lecture
example,
the chair. I'm going to go have a smoke.
Wait.
perfect. Actually, that's even better.
Really quick, let me let the two super TTS come through while we have you. All right, guys. We have Hail Pope. Thank you.
Hail Pope donated $200. It's Lent, so I'll be nice. She's confusing the Apostles' Creed and the Nicene Creed, which would also be wrong. Neither of those were universally accepted by the founders or their states' populations.
Me when I make, I guess. Good job, Hail Pope.
Hail Pope,
$200
thanks for the
of
message. We have one more coming through here. Give me just one moment. Guys, if you want to get a TTS in, that's streamlabs.com/. Oh, it triggered
Hail Pope donate.
a second time.
He's going to pay double for that.
You got to send in another one, Hail Pope. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kyla. We have one coming in from not Professor Dave. There's a bit of a delay now because the Hail Pope one caught up our system.
Hail Pope.
Hail Pope.
He's raking in all those dollars.
There it is. But if you guys do want to get a TTS message in, you can do so. Streamlabs.com/whatever. $199 TTS. There it is. Thank you.
Not Professor Dave donated $200. Two truths.
That's
one
an
lie.
attack of
God is
Rachel.
a social construct with an
That's an attack of
unverifiable
Rachel.
existence. Ran through Rachel Wilson. Digit body count.
See?
Smoking increases the risk of lung disease and premature death.
I did not.
Premature death.
That's just a Rachel attack.
Guys,
Rude,
don't be rude
Professor
to Rachel
Dave.
Wilson, okay?
Rude, Professor Dave. I'm sorry. I didn't read it first.
That's between you and him.
Can I have a smoke now?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Of course.
we can talk a little bit about good faith versus bad faith. Are you done your TTS?
You want? Yeah, we're all done.
I'm gonna talk to the crowd. I mean, I can talk to you too. So one of the things that you're seeing me get frustrated by is that typically when you have good faith engagement, which the previous debate that we had with Andrew, that was one of the requirements that I talked about. And specifically, I was like, I don't really want to just do a debate with somebody who's just bad faith for like 6 hours straight. It's not super enjoyable. So when we say good faith, I just want to be clear. When I say somebody's bad faith or good faith, it's not like moral condemnations. People are bad faith all the time. I'm bad faith some of the time. He's bad faith some of the time. But good faith typically means you're trying to hear the genuine version or what's reasonable to conclude from what they're saying and grant some of their presumptions to build out whether or not that idea has flesh or not. So what happens though is that Andrew Wilson will often do this technique where he'll kind of straw man and pillory over like a couple of unique words and then refuse to actually understand what I'm saying, right? So the obvious argument that I'm saying is, wouldn't it make more sense? It seems a little funny.
I don't know if it's fair. He can't respond.
He said I got to do it when I want. He said I don't want to do this. I'm going to walk away. Right. So when I say, for example, in the case of states versus federal, he's saying, well, the federal government did want church and state to be united. They just couldn't write it in because they couldn't find a unifying clause of faith. That's what he's saying, and therefore they allowed it in through allowing states to make decisions. But the 10th Amendment doesn't say states should make a religion. It just allowed them to because at the time that the Constitution was written, almost all states had a religious clause for holding office. The issue is that if the federal government wanted, which is absolutely America, wanted to establish some sort of, you don't want to be on screen when I say this, right? I said you don't want to be on screen when I say this, hey?
What do you mean?
Oh, you just swapped it over.
It's just a better angle.
Okay. When there's a reasonable argument here to be made of, what did the founding fathers intend? What was their actual vision and principle? Because I think it's a pretty good principle. And if their principle was they actually wanted no separation of church and state, they would have found a way to write it into the original Constitution, even at a federal level. But they didn't. In fact, not only did they not, they explicitly wrote it out. So just because they allowed states to continue the practice that they rejected at a federal level is not them saying, we want church and state to be united. They said explicitly in both this document and at multiple points throughout the Declaration of Independence, especially the original version that TJ wrote, that there is a strong intention of separation of church and state. This is talked about in the Federalist Papers. This is something valued by many religious people, and part of why so many religious people, majority of whom were founding fathers that signed this and agreed to the separation of church and state, is because they had seen what happened in England. They saw the erasure not just of the state, but also of faith in the bonding of these two things, which is bad. It's bad for the religion and it's bad for the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
Good times. I just wanted to say,
You can do this. You can be the first millennial in history to make a trip on a device that is not their computer. How? Yeah, how? I need a screen to feel safe. Kayak. They can bear hundreds of...
the whole thing. I got baited. When I read the first sentence, I was like, oh, it's probably pertinent to the discussion. Rachel, if you're watching, sorry I let that one come through. I'll have to. Andrew's back. Andrew's back. What do you mean confusion?
There's no confusion.
I'm not confused. Oh, what do you mean? I was saying it's apologies for letting that TTS come through.
Yeah, he was apologizing to you for the TTS coming through.
I didn't read it prior. I read the first sentence and I was like, it's probably fine. Whatever. I apologize. So sorry, Rachel. Guys, W's in the chat for Rachel. Shall we switch prompts, or do you guys want to continue? We've been on it for an hour and 30 minutes.
No, we can
At this point, let me read you, at least before we, if you do choose to dive in, the other prompts that we do have. Modern liberal values are not compatible with Christianity. Another prompt, secular states are destined to likely revert back to religiously informed governments because atheists have no moral basis for which to govern. And then the other prompt, Christians should attempt to maintain political power in the US and rule through Christian ethics as it is the superior system, which maybe we talked a bit about from the first prompt.
I think that's what the prompts are a little bit like sliding between them all because they're
a
decently
bit interrelated. Yes.
Yeah, but I'm happy to pick up wherever Andrew would like to pick up.
Andrew, do you have any insight on
whichever one you want to go with?
It's up to you, boss.
Let's do modern liberal values are not compatible with Christianity.
Oh, we're going to the last one? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you guys have a preference over something
that one's fine with me.
Sure.
So there are no Christian values in modern liberalism. It's just an appeal to a system.
Sure, but the system doesn't have to be. So my argument basically say, I don't think that Christian rules should be utilized as statecraft. I think separation of church and state is one of the most fundamentally important things, not just for a state, but more so for a Christian.
That's an ought claim, you agree?
Sure.
Okay, where are you deriving that ought?
From my faith.
So your faith tells you that Christians should be liberal?
No, I said that the separation of church and state.
So your Christian values tell you that Christians should not be in charge of states?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you think that Christians who were in charge of states before were wrong?
Yeah.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which
Yeah,
ones?
All the ones that came after Jesus and did it.
So you think that historically they just got it all wrong?
Yeah, I think that, like, if you look, for example, at, like, I mean, we can get into the typological argument here, but if you look at, like, all of the history of the Bible, for example, what we see over time is when we go from the Old Testament to a New Testament, and for those, because I'm not trying to do a pop quiz, just for those who are listening that don't know what a typological, it's just like a type. We're looking at types typically from Old Testament to New Testament. It's a pretty standard, like, apologetics or a theological argument that gets made. So when you look, for example, through the Old Testament, we have multiple periods that I'm sure you would agree to. Judges, kings, priests. Agreed? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what we see is basically a high blending of statecraft and faith that gets reduced over time with the final answer of Jesus, who actually actively and aggressively rejects statehood, rejects politics, and rejects any kingmanship. In fact, that's a large reason, not the only reason, but a large reason why the felt that he was not the Messiah is because they didn't see a physical, political kingdom unifying the northern and southern kingdoms.
Okay, so back to the ought claim. Christians ought not be in charge of governments and government systems?
It depends on what you mean when you're saying that.
Well, you said that Christians ought not do that, right?
I don't think that Christians should try to push for a blending of church and state.
Okay, and does state need to be a nation?
When I say state, I mean a nation.
So how come that it's only at the national level?
Well, I would be at this, I guess, when I say nation, I guess I should say governmental level. I don't want, and when I say this, I don't mean that Christians can't be a government official. Christians should not impose Christian ethics into
tribes?
rule of law. I don't know, haven't thought about tribes.
But there's governments, right?
Not really, not like meaningful.
Why is that not meaningful?
I would not say that anyone who's like a political philosopher would look at a tribe and call that a government. Usually when we mean government, we mean post the invention of the nation
What
state.
about a nation city?
Yeah, nation state.
That's not, well, a nation city, let's say. The city itself
If there's
considers
like a
itself the
formalized
entirety of the nation.
Roman, like to some degree, like if there's a formalized actual government, not just like a tribe, then sure, potentially. But again, I need to know what we're talking about here. I need like more specific examples.
Like you have a city that's 100,000 people in it, and they have a government there, right? That should not mix church and state.
Yeah, they should rule with Christian ethics as a thing that makes laws.
Okay, what should they rule with?
Because I like democracy.
Consensus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
what,
laws have to be what works.
and what happens when the consensus says kill babies?
Well, that would be against like what works, right?
No.
Yeah, a nation is not going to work very well if they kill all their babies.
A nation would work just fine if they kill other people's babies.
No, because that nation would be then a target for probably war, not just from that nation, but probably neighboring nations, because it seems like in general, most people have this emergent value of not killing babies.
Okay, I don't understand.
AI can't shred, but it can help tweak tuck geometry for faster spin.
Bro, what? What's all this interruption? Fucking shit. Astroglide, they interrupted the fucking show for Astroglide.
Consents to that.
Well, it's not just about what the nation consents to. Like,
Yes,
this
if you said, and your exact words, I wrote them down, they should rule via consent because I like consent because I like democracy.
Yeah, so when I say rule by consent, that doesn't mean that states' craftsmen aren't imposing laws that are reasonable and work, right? The law is about like what makes a state work.
Yeah, but there's no contradiction in how the state would not work if they killed every third child.
How would that state logistically work? I feel like that state
It would work fine. They used to do it all the time. They used to sacrifice children all the time inside of Rome, inside of many states.
Sure, but
and it worked just fine.
Well, not really. Like I would
Yes,
argue,
really.
Well, I would argue a lot of the where are those nation states?
They lasted a lot longer than America, some of them.
Where are they?
Well,
They died.
are you saying that, so that's a fallacious argument.
It's not
You
fallacious.
saying because this didn't continue in perpetuity, that means it didn't work? That I could just say, well, don't you agree that America as it exists right now is not going to exist in perpetuity, therefore it doesn't
Yeah,
work?
probably because there are theoretically and hopefully there'll be better systems that emerge.
Okay, so then it doesn't work?
By and large, no, not by what I mean.
What? Okay, so I just
Wait,
want to make
because,
sure.
so Rome didn't fall, right, just because of one thing. But when we look at, for example, a nation that kills every third
Can you
baby,
grab me another beer while you're up?
this probably wouldn't work for a number of reasons. Number one, citizens don't like killing their babies.
But if they did.
They don't.
Yeah, but if they did.
They don't.
But if they did.
What person enjoys killing their
Like
babies?
a pagan nation, let's say.
I would basically argue that they don't enjoy killing their babies either. Usually, like even when you look at pagan nations where babies are killed, right? Oftentimes, when you can find evidence for it, the mother of that child, for example, or the father of that child are completely opposed to it. It's usually forced upon them, right? They don't enjoy it necessarily, and usually the child sacrifice was occurring.
But if there's
because of pagan beliefs.
consensus, what grounds would you oppose the consensus?
What makes the state work best for most of the people?
Yeah,
That's
and most of
typically
the
how we make
people
laws.
have now given you consensus that this is working best for us.
You can't give consensus that this is working for us. We actually have to look at like material like outcomes, right? So for example, how we know that America's law system works pretty well, although there are problems, is the fact that our military is the strongest. We have the most amount of scientific output, which is awesome, right? That we are the #1 currency in the world, the largest like thing. So we know, okay, the system that we essentially kind of erected around, for the most part, works pretty well. It's a pretty competitive system.
Okay, but that's post hoc. Do you agree with me that it takes time for you to gather data on a system which is implemented?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So
That's why we've seen over
for
history
5
things
years,
look different,
so for
right?
5 years, we have a consensus that we every third baby, and the people go along with it and they adore it. They think it's great. If we don't have the data, show them how wrong-headed they are yet.
I don't think that would emerge.
So, okay, but it has emerged.
I think
But it has.
No, it
Yes,
has not.
yes, it definitely has. There's definitely been many nations kill their children, including China. So I don't know what you're talking about.
But it didn't work.
What?
In fact, one of
Yeah, that's post hoc. That's you post hoc
Yeah,
saying
that's
it didn't
typically-
work after the fact. We're talking about in the
that's
fact.
how you develop statecraft.
In the fact, though, when it's happening,
Yeah.
what are you appealing to oppose it?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, me personally, I want to define command theorist. I would say that murdering babies is wrong.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So the consensus would be wrong.
Okay, it's my morals, yeah.
Okay, so you hold a form of dualism.
No, it would be relativism.
Well, not really.
Not relativism, it's relativistic. It's probably the wrong word.
Relativistic, perhaps, but this sounds like dual ethics.
No, it's just
Why?
relativistic.
Well, why is consensus good?
It's non-ontologically good.
Okay, good.
I think it makes the most, I think for the most part, well, I can answer you.
All right.
Breathe, you're gonna be okay. So for the most part, I think that, for example, consensus is good because it's worked. I think it's worked insofar as America mostly has a democratic consensus type system, which has worked pretty damn well. I think the world outside is pretty good. There are a lot of problems that people will point to, but I think America overall is a pretty good nation. I think most Western liberal democracies are better than we've ever developed at any time in history.
So the grounds that you would oppose a consensus of killing every third baby would be Christian ethics, right?
Well, it would probably be multiple things, yeah, that I would appeal to. Like I would use multiple evidences for it.
Well,
The reason I personally wouldn't kill babies is because I think it's wrong to murder babies.
okay, gotcha.
Do you think it's wrong to
But
murder
if
babies?
there was a consensus, well, yeah, of course. But if there was a consensus,
That
you
would-
said that's the thing that we should run things by consensus.
That might become state law, but I'm saying to you, I think that would fall out of state quickly, and I would probably be a person who would advocate strongly against that state law, because not all
Based-
state laws are moral.
Based on your morality.
To some degree, but I wouldn't be imposing my morality
What
on
if the consensus is that you're not allowed to oppose the consensus?
it. Like an authoritarian regime?
Well, no, that wouldn't be authoritarian, that would be democratic.
How so?
Because you can democratically vote in laws which are oppressive.
Sorry, so I feel like you're just making something into democracy that doesn't exist. Could you explain it more? to me?
Yeah. If everybody votes tomorrow in democracy that Kyla can never say another fucking word or else, I don't know, she gets beat to death with a rock.
I would
right?
have due process.
Okay, well, the thing is
And I
you
could
didn't
argue
say...
free speech.
you
That
didn't-
violates my
hang on,
amendment.
you didn't say due process, you said consensus is how
Well-
we should rule.
Consensus is typically how we select for like electoral people, and then electoral people are hopefully, although not always, supposed to be educated in such a way that they can make statecraft policies that brings about most good for citizens. Because I don't think statecraft is in and of itself moral.
Okay, so we're not actually appealing to consensus for how we should run things then?
Well, to some degree, because the stakeholder is the voter. So to some degree, you have to appeal to what stakeholders believe.
So what's
which is the
preventing
voters.
voters in a liberal democracy from voting in laws which go against your morals?
Well, I would argue that God puts like a sense of conscience within each of us. And I don't think that almost anyone actually emerges in such a way that they say it's good to kill babies. I think, for example, pagan institutions did erect very historically, and you will notice that they don't exist anymore because they don't work very well and people don't like them. And I also would argue that they were moral at the time, right? And so in the case of statecraft, we would use consensus to vote in elected representatives, and these elected representatives would impose laws. But if we don't agree with those laws, then we can oust that person. We
Yeah,
have
but
federal
that's
courts.
not my question. My question is, what actually prevents inside of a liberal society from people utilizing consensus in order to pass laws which are immoral, from your view?
Immoral from my view?
Yeah.
Nothing, but I don't think that I don't think that all of my moral system should be rule of law.
I understand.
Do you think that?
All I'm doing is
Can I
making
ask you
sure that
about-
I get it right.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you think that
But before you do, I'm going to interrogate the position, then you can interrogate mine.
I would
That's the
just like
fair
to
way.
have some back and forth.
That's the fair way to do it.
Well,
But the problem is
no.
you just divert.
Wait, no, that's
Yeah,
not
it
true.
is.
The first conversation we had, the first like segment.
I don't
was
care about the
Christian-
meta. Just let me finish
I'm
the
not
interrogation of
dropping
the
the meta
position.
because you're doing some.
You
You're giving like the
refuse to
sneaky
allow.
bad faith.
I want. How's it bad faith to want to interrogate
Because
your position?
I haven't said you can interrogate my position. I said, can you wait for a second so I can ask you some questions? Because in the
After
case
I'm
where
done
I
with
was
mine.
interrogating your worldview with the first prompt, I also allowed you to interrogate
Great,
my worldview in
great.
return.
Let me do the
So I'm
interrogation
asking for the
first,
same
and then you can do it
response.
yours second.
Okay, so do you think that we should
No,
rule?
no. I said, let me do my interrogation first. You can do yours second.
I'm saying I would like a back and forth.
But all that does is derail from the questions I have.
Derails from the dunk that you're trying to lead me into.
How
I
is it a
understand that it
dunk?
does that. Well, because what you're trying to do is to get to some foundational thing of being like, see, it's born on nothing. It's like, okay, Andrew,
That's what's bad faith.
do you want to just go to a Grippers
not
trilemma?
allowing your position.
Everyone knows that this is what's happening.
What you're saying that your position, when it's interrogated, its foundation is going to be incoherent?
I would say every single foundation of any worldview, normative, or meta-ethics is unjustifiable. Yes, this is what axioms are.
Oh, really?
They all fail Agrippa's trilemma. Yes.
Oh,
How do
because
you
of
not
Agrippa's
fail it?
trilemma.
How do you not fail Agrippa's trilemma?
Oh man, that's really weird. What? Tell me again. What does Agrippa's trilemma say?
It's dogmatism. All justification systems fail at a foundational level because they will fail in one of three ways, or all of three ways.
Oh.
Dogmatism,
Yeah.
infinite regression, and circular reasoning.
Is that position justified?
No.
Okay. So anyway, back to this.
Wait, so you're run away from Agrippa's trilemma? Okay, but you know what?
I ran away from it.
Yeah.
You just said that Agrippa's trilemma is not a justified position.
What do you mean by justified?
Well, whatever you mean by it in Agrippa's trilemma.
Well, it's an internal critique of justification systems. Agrippa's, what do you mean is Agrippa's trilemma unjustified? It is a philosophical tool that we can utilize to understand that at a foundational level, no belief systems. How do you solve Agrippa's
like
trilemma?
truth.
How do you solve Agrippa's trilemma?
Well, it's self-refuting. This has been known for 1,000 years. I don't know if you know this or not. It's a self-refuting. Agrippa's trilemma is self-refuting.
So how do you not engage in dogmatism?
If all things are axiomatic,
You
right?
assume.
The reduction to axiomatic, are we making a truth claim?
You are making a truth claim. Yep.
Okay, and is that truth claim justified?
No.
No,
Yeah, because you assume. Wait, are you not making a truth claim?
it doesn't matter.
Of course it does. Are you not making truth
Oh,
claims?
wait a second.
Does your moral
When you
system
go,
not
when you
utilize
move,
truth claims?
did you posit an argument to me? Which was Agrippa's trilemma?
Yep.
And was that argument justified? No.
No more than any. Wait, is your arguments justified?
What does that have to do with
I'm
you?
internally critiquing you this
You
time.
can internally critique me with your arguments?
How are you not? Yeah. So I said, how do you not fail Agrippa's trilemma? And you said, Agrippa's trilemma doesn't matter. That's not how you solve
I didn't
Agrippa's
say it
trilemma.
doesn't
You said
matter.
it's unjustified.
Well, it's self-refuting.
How is it self-refuting?
Because if you claim that you're making a truth claim that's unjustified, then you're not making a truth claim.
Sure you are. You're just assuming.
That
Agrippa's
it's not
trilemma, I guess,
justi-
engages in dogmatism.
That
in and
it's
of
not
itself.
justified?
Yeah. So Agrippa's trilemma, I suppose, engages in dogmatism itself, but how is it self-refuting?
That you just explained it.
Every single system is self-refuting then by this
Is
logic.
that a truth claim?
Yes.
Okay, and does that fail because of Agrippa's trilemma?
Yes,
So
all
should I
truth
take
claims.
anything you say seriously? Because
Give me a single
don't-
truth
I
claim.
don't have to make
Yeah,
your
He's
argument.
gonna run from this one again. Watch. Give me a single truth claim that doesn't fail Agrippa's trilemma. Go.
Okay, first of all, back up. Whose argument is this?
Give me a single truth
Whose
claim
argument
that doesn't
is
fail
this?
Agrippa's trilemma.
Whose argument
I
is
knew
this?
you were gonna weasel on this one. I'm just gonna stay here.
Okay, stay here. Whose argument is it?
Right now, both of us. We're both
I'm not
having a
arguing.
conversation.
Wait a second.
Are we
I
both
didn't.
having a
I
conversation?
didn't argue that Agrippa's trilemma is true. You did.
I said it's true in like an assumed way, in the way that all things are assumed.
So is it true or not?
It's true in like I suppose true in the way that we mean true for everything else that's true.
What does that mean?
Well, give me an example.
Yeah, it's not my argument. You
So
don't get to interrogate me for your
I'm asking-
argument.
No, I'm asking you for counterfactual to prove
I
you
don't
wrong.
need to. It's
So
your
my
argument.
My argument is nothing is. Nothing is this thing you're saying.
Nothing's
Can
true?
you provide me a count?
Are you ready to learn to build? Register now and
You wanna build? You wanna build something? Shut the fuck up. No one wants to build shit. In this society.
But oftentimes at a foundational level, yeah.
Often or
Are.
are?
Yeah.
So is Agrippa's trilemma a truth tautology?
It's not an axiom. It's a philosophical system in equation how you test your own thinking. So how do you?
And so I'm super
Give me a
confused.
truth claim that doesn't solve.
I
Agrippa's-
don't have to make your argument.
This isn't my argument. My argument is all arguments foundationally will fail Agrippa's trilemma.
Okay, so you're
And
making
you're
an
saying,
argument.
you're saying
Yeah.
that's not true.
I didn't say anything like that.
Of course
I
you did.
asked you,
Do you think that
how
that's
it was true.
Wait, so you're agreeing with me that no truth claim.
I didn't agree with anything.
So but you have to, those are the
I
options.
don't have to do anything. You're making an
I
argument.
guess you could be a coward and you could run
It's
away
not
from
cowardice.
the
You posit that Agrippa's trilemma is true.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm saying that's assumed because all things are at a foundational level are assumed. And I said, can you give
Okay.
me an example
Is
where
God
that's not
assumed?
true? Yeah, God is dogmatism.
Okay, so you think.
Assuming it exists is
So when I
false.
ask you, does God exist, and you say yes, that's not true.
It's true and I'm assuming it.
How is it true?
It's true because I believe it's true. I'm a divine command theorist.
So, okay, so I just want to make sure I got this right.
How do
When
you
you
solve
posit,
this? He's just going to run away from this.
when you posit, well,
Do you have to pay like $10 to
you
force him to answer
posited
this question?
How do you posit the arguments, and then I have to answer to the argument?
So if I pose an argument and
Yeah.
I give you the justification for my argument, and
Yeah.
it seems like the way that you're acting is that you think that that is incorrect, then you have to pose me a counter. So I said, if I'm wrong, Andrew, you can just prove me wrong like that. Find a truth claim that isn't fundamentally unjustifiable.
Yeah, so
go ahead.
so-
How do you
okay.
find me one truth claim that doesn't fail Agrippa's
First of all,
trilemma?
who posits Agrippa's trilemma is true, Andrew or Erudite?
Agrippa's trilemma isn't. This is like saying Euthyphro's dilemma is true. Is Euthyphro's dilemma true?
Okay, again, why are you asking me questions about your argument?
What you're doing, I think I can't tell. I can't tell if you genuinely don't understand Agrippa's trilemma, maybe, or if you're being bad faith. Those are the only two
How am I
options.
being bad faith when you posit an argument and I
hold
ask
on,
you about
relax. Andrew, I said there's two options. You
Oh.
genuinely don't understand, or you're being bad faith.
Or
But
there's a third option, which is maybe you don't understand?
I do understand how dilemmas work in
Okay,
philosophy.
then let's.
Are trolley problems true?
If Agrippa's trilemma,
Is like a trolley problem.
yeah, I just want to make sure
It's a
Agrippa's.
philosophical test of logic.
Okay, I got it. So when you're talking about Agrippa's trilemma, would you have any criticisms for this argument that you're making?
I can't solve it. That's the point of the dilemma.
Okay, so when you say that when I ask you, is Agrippa's trilemma true?
I can't solve it.
Is it true though?
Is a trolley problem true? Is Euthyphro's dilemma true? What are we doing right now?
Yeah, I think philosophically you can say that the
Euthyphro's dilemma.
conclusion is true or
Wait,
false.
no, the Agrippa's trilemma isn't a conclusion. Agrippa's trilemma is a problem. It's a philosophical problem. Is Euthyphro's dilemma true?
Wait, I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about Agrippa's trilemma.
Yeah, it's a problem in the same way that Euthyphro's dilemma is.
Okay, so
Is
walk me
trolley
through
problems
it.
true?
Walk me through Agrippa's dilemma. I'll make sure I understand it.
Okay, Agrippa's trilemma posits that no beliefs are justifiable foundationally because they will fail one of three ways: dogmatism, infinite regression, or circularity. And I'm saying, can you find me an example of a
So
truth
then-
claim that doesn't fail Agrippa's
Well,
trilemma?
that sounds to me like you're positing propositions.
I'm giving you something similar to like a Euthyphro dilemma or a trolley problem to
Yeah.
see if you solve it logically.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with Agrippa's trilemma, which we're talking about.
It
So
has everything to do with
what
Agrippa's
is
trilemma
the-
because you're asking if it's
what
true,
is the
which is like asking me if trolley problems are true.
No, it's not.
Are
If-
trolley problems true?
If it's propositional, this sounds like propositional logic to me. You're actually giving me premises and a conclusion. Is the conclusion true?
This is not what's happening. It's a dilemma. Is the Euthyphro dilemma true?
Well, that's a whole different thing.
These
I'm
are
talking about.
one-to-one comparison. This is
Okay.
the comparison I'm trying to make because I feel like you're not understanding what a dilemma is.
Write it out for me.
I don't need to. Do you wait? How do you solve Euthyphro dilemma? Or do you
Well,
think?
right now, I just want it written out so I can see if this is a non-propositional problem.
Okay, I'm just gonna write out what I've said.
Okay.
Okay. All foundational. Beliefs.
Write the chat, Nathan, if you want to pull it up.
Yeah, get the TTS in here. Make Brian some money, okay?
Oh, no, I was going to pull up Agrippa's trilemma.
Oh, so it's on
So
screen?
people know what the heck you guys are talking about. Go F11 with it, Nathan. Do you have it? Okay, can you? It also goes by Munchausen trilemma, I guess.
I would just
Scroll
look
down.
up specific Agrippa's trilemma.
Well, scroll down.
This
Wait,
is-
just finish it writing. I want to see if it's
Scroll down.
propositional.
Yeah, continue on though. Go ahead,
Okay.
scroll down. Keep going. It says the name. Scroll down. It says so. Munchausen trilemma is also known as Agrippa's trilemma. So I guess it's just a different name for it. Scroll back up.
Yes, you
Okay,
see
so
the
I'll
three
read
there?
this. Here, keep working on this. But the circular argument in which the proof of some proposition presupposes the truth of that very proposition, the regressive argument in which each proof requires a further proof ad infinitum, the dogmatic argument which rests on accepted precepts which are merely rather than defended. The trilemma then is having to choose one of the equally unsatisfying options.
So you can read that. Sorry if you tell me if you need me to rewrite something.
Circular argument, infinite regression, or dogmatism. So then, you believe in objective truth, right?
I believe in objective morals, yeah. And like scientific realism.
Are they objectively true? Morals?
Yeah. Well, objectively, like they exist outside of me.
Is that true?
Yeah,
Okay, what makes it true?
I'm assuming.
So, is everything you assume true?
No, but everything I assume is true because I'm really good at philosophy. How do you solve? All I'm
It has
asking.
nothing to do with me.
It does.
You don't believe.
So here's what's
it
happening.
doesn't.
How do you solve Euthyphro's dilemma?
Why do I need to solve your
Because
problem?
if I'm posing you Euthyphro's dilemma, a philosophical problem, you can't go, is the problem true? That's
I'm not even asking about that.
That's like
I'm
sidestepping
asking
the conversation.
if you believe that this is correct, and you also believe that objective morality is correct.
Yeah, correct in the way that we're assuming Oedipus trilemma, correct in the way that like trolley problems are good at testing
So
logic.
we're just both making assumptions.
Everyone is, well, that or you're infinitely regressing. Those are your two. Well, there's your circular reasoning, which is just tautology. So everyone's kind of doing tautology.
So just assuming God.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
How are you not?
So all of these things in philosophy are just going down to these three categories for you?
No, not these. These aren't categories. These are ways in which you're fallacious. Your thinking is fallacious. So it's saying all beliefs, all meta-ethics, normative frameworks are fundamentally unjustifiable because they can't solve for one of these three things. Thank you.
I see.
And I'm asking you, how do you solve
I
it?
can't. I'm going to adopt it.
He's like, Euthyphro's dilemma. I don't know.
Hey.
Can't find an answer.
No. I'm going to adopt it. You're right.
Okay.
I'm just going to assume everything's true because I assume it.
That's fine, but now
That's what you said.
now you're in line with like, so this is one of your issues.
That's what you said.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Welcome to my world, okay?
Yeah, I'm in your world.
We're based over here.
Yeah.
Okay, the issue is that I wouldn't go to secular people and be like, you don't have a moral ethical system because it's unjustifiable. Because I already know that mine's unjustifiable. I'm assuming I'm doing dogmatism and they're doing usually infinite regression.
So then-
or they're being cowards and they're being like, oh, I don't know.
So then you can't make a justification for why I shouldn't like pull out a machine gun and kill everybody.
These are not the same thing. You understand me? Yeah, so when I'm talking about foundational beliefs,
Yeah.
pop quiz, what's foundational? Do you know what foundationalism is?
Yeah, it's going to be the pillar in which the belief stands on.
Yeah, okay. So not all statements or beliefs
Thanks for
are
pop quiz, by the
foundational.
way.
You're welcome. I don't actually do pop quizzes. I usually
That's
ask
your whole
questions.
debate style, but go ahead.
It's not. Me knowing more information than you is not like some crazy like maniacal tactic.
Well,
and in fact,
when we get to the point where you do,
well,
I know.
this is the issue, Andrew, is it speaks to your insecurity that when I ask you questions about whether or not you know something, I'm asking in genuine good faith because they're like
Of course.
esoteric and I don't expect people to know them. But you take it as an insult to like your pride or something like that. Of course, because you think I'm doing something like maniacal when it's like me asking you, do you know what Agrippa's trilemma is? Isn't to say, huh, idiot. You don't know anything about Agrippa's trilemma? Why even talk about philosophy? It's for me to go, okay, if you don't, let me explain it to you, and then I'm curious how you would reason through it.
Yeah, I would just reason that I'll adopt it, and anybody that I decide to impose my will on can't actually say that I'm unjustified.
Of course you can.
How?
Well, you wouldn't say that your foundations are unjustified, but they would say, for example, here's a list of evidences and arguments as to why I don't think
Yeah,
we
but
should
none of
do
those
this.
are justified.
You
It'd
would
be
build it off of
circular.
tautologies.
So what?
Everything's built off of tautologies.
There's no justification. Can't do
Math-
anything.
Wait, do you think math doesn't exist because
What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
math is tautological?
Oh my god.
Wait, do you not know that?
What is the
Pop quiz time.
justification? So,
Do you know that math is
so how can you
tautological?
tell me? You see what I mean? Pop quiz.
Well,
Can you
I'm
tell
doing
me-
it now because you're just being ridiculous. Yeah.
Squirrel brain. Can you tell me?
I'm pretty focused.
Can you tell
Laser
me?
focused,
Tell
actually.
me how it is then that you can create any justifications that anybody's ever doing anything wrong?
Logic and reason. You build on top of like tautological axioms that seem reasonable based on kind of assumptions. They seem reasonable, and you build upon an entire structure of world belief, which is
But
what
none of them
define-
are justified.
At a foundational level, no. All
No.
beliefs are unjustifiable.
Well, then you don't.
How dogmatism?
When you just told me then that I can't go to secular people and tell them that their beliefs are unjustified,
You can't and be consistent.
so then we should just throw philosophy out.
No.
Why not? It's not
Because-
justified. At a
because lots
foundational
of
level, it's just the tautology that we make up,
because
right?
people accept tautologies because that's how you think about the world, right?
Okay.
Like math, we just accept tautologies in math. We have to because you have no starting point if you don't. So we assume these things and then we build on top of them. And then the beauty of things like math and science, in the case of like science realism, is you can use math and these things to observe and test and see if you're actually mapping onto the correctness of the world.
I see.
Yeah.
So then if
Design, inductive, and deductive,
if I utilize the assumption that God is real, this
That's
would
dogmatism. Yeah.
Yeah, this would satisfy you because you also use the assumption that God is real.
I'll just grant it, of course. I
Okay,
always
so
grant
then
it.
if that's the case, and we assume that God's real, and then we assume God's commands, and then we build our case off of that,
Yeah.
that's justified. As justified as something can be.
Yeah.
Okay, well then I don't know what we're arguing about. We'll just do that.
Well, we were arguing because you wouldn't answer Griffith's trilemma and saying that it wasn't true and coping.
No,
so
I was
hard about
asking
it.
you if it was true.
Well, we're arguing this because you were walking me along this thing and being like, secular
Yeah,
people
but
have no
I'm still
justifications
gonna
for their worldview.
I'm
And I
s-
went, well,
yeah.
we can go there, Andrew, but I'm just going to jump ahead to a Griffith's
Great, but I
trilemma.
still want to get back to the interrogation.
Okay, but
now.
your line of argumentation is going to fall apart because when you go, well, why are you assuming that this is good? I'll go, we're assuming it.
Okay, that's fine. But anyway, back to can we get back to this now?
Sure.
Okay, so when we're talking about the issue of secularism,
Yeah.
or not secularism, I'm sorry, liberalism.
Wait.
Liberalism is what we're discussing here.
It's easy for the screen to steal our time. Less for you. To find more. Full of protein, less ingredients, less sugar. Siggy's, less sets you free.
Find a great rental car deal with Kayak. And find the confidence to do important things on your phone.
Person when you debated Charlie, when you debated Destiny, when you debated Naima, when you debated Xena,
No,
et cetera.
no, my argument is
you
actually
usually go,
that
your
if
belief
you're
system's unjustifiable.
that's a dire
And it's
thing.
like, your beliefs are
I do the
unjustifiable.
opposite. I start at the end. I just say if it's the case that it's just preferences, then you have absolutely no criticism for me imposing mine.
Well, most secular people, if they're good on philosophy, would say, well, it's not just preferences, right? It's some mixture of like we use. If they're utilitarian, they would use utiles.
These are
and
all
if they're-
preferences.
Not really. These
Yeah,
are like
really.
no, there's no more preferences than you preferring God.
That's my point.
But then all of this is empty.
That's right.
So your
So then
arguments
you
are
would have-
wait. But then you have to grant that your arguments are just as empty as theirs.
If that's the case, then you would have no room to criticize me for imposing my preferences.
Sure, we could, because then we could just use reason and logic and evidence of what seems to
Preferences?
benefit people.
Your preferences
Yeah,
versus my
I think
preferences?
it's reasonable to assume that I prefer that what like people are that people have experienced less harm, right? I think that's a reasonable preference
Why?
to have because I want it.
Then it's perfectly reasonable for me to say no.
I didn't say it's unreasonable.
There's nothing to argue
Because
there.
you're insisting that they're unjustifiable while you are. And I'm saying, no, you're all unjustifiable, but both are actually reasonable. You can have your Christian preferences, but as a Christian, I'm fighting you and saying, actually, your preferences are icky and bad for the faith. Don't do it.
Got
Also, Jesus wasn't political, so you're
Got
kind
it.
of going against what Jesus taught.
So-
also bad to do.
Okay, so then back to this, when we're talking about liberalism and the system of liberalism, and you're appealing to consensus, right? If the consensus is that they want to kill every third baby, which is just part of their preferences, man, and they assume that it's fine, you can't actually critique that.
Of
then.
course you can. We do it all the time.
With what?
You could use utilitarianism, and you could say actually killing babies is bad because it makes a worse world, it harms that specific baby, it probably also harms the mother, which would actually decrease the amount of flourishing and increase the amount of harm, which is why I think it would be bad to do. That's what a utilitarian could say.
And then say, but you would say that
God doesn't like it when you kill babies unless he orders you to do it, like in the
right.
Amalekites.
And which one of you is right?
Well, we would have to fight. I mean, the issue is like we have to
that's
assume
right.
at
We
the end
have
of
to
level.
fight, right?
Yeah, and I would go, I think my argument's more reasonable. I wouldn't say my argument's more justifiable at a foundational level. This is what you do. You try to say, my beliefs are foundationally justified and yours are not, which is why I'm reasonable and you're not. It's like, that's not true.
Actually, I do the opposite.
No, you
I start at the
definitely don't
end
do
of
the
the argument and say I agree with you. It's all
Just
preferences.
because the chronology of how you get there is different, it doesn't change that this is the tactic that you typically utilize when you debate people.
No, listen, I'm doing the same thing with you. We're at the end now.
Yeah, you're like, I start at the end and I walk people all the way back
I'm not
to the
even walking
foundational
you back.
atoms.
I'm just asking
And
you
then I go,
this.
see how silly this is? I'm not silly. And I'm saying, you're just
yeah.
as unjustified,
I'm
but
just
there's
asking
reason that
you
you
a
can
single
utilize.
question here,
Yeah,
which
you
is
use
that
reason and
is
logic.
consensus, when you're talking about consensus, that's how you want things to be, right?
Well, no, this is not an ought. Like a consensus isn't an ought. I think it's the best system that's arrived so far.
So when I
If we
asked
can make
you,
up a better one,
so when I asked you
right?
earlier, this is an ought, and you said yes, that's not the case?
Well, there's a second part to what I was saying, I believe, at the time.
No, I asked you is consensus how Christians ought do things. You said yes.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No.
I specifically wrote it down.
If I did, I didn't mean it.
You didn't?
No, I should have clarified. What do you actually want to ask here?
Yeah, so I want to just ask you about consensus. So if they want to kill every third baby, okay?
I would oppose this.
Yeah, but why would they be actually wrong?
I would, for example, in the case of a pagan, I would probably appeal to their own moral system. I think that most people, for example, I believe, you probably believe this too, that God gives us conscience, right? He like puts a spirit inside of us, that God's meta-ethical system emerges naturally out of us, right? So like what I would do, for example, is I would probably, first of all, try to examine that pagan's belief system. And I would be like, do you actually think killing babies is okay, right? I would actually morally question them. And one of the issues is that this is unobservable. We can't truly know whether somebody thinks something is wrong or right. But I think the knowledge of wrong or right is really important, kind of biblical, one might even say. So I would question whether or not they know it's wrong or right, and then I would appeal to things like state, so like civic ethics, for example. It doesn't work very well in nations to kill every third baby. You're just reducing your population. Usually the mothers don't like it, usually the fathers don't like it. It doesn't seem to have any good outcome. In fact, most of the reasons why people in the past killed babies was to satisfy some sun god. And we would go, that's not an overly reasonable argument. It's probably more reasonable to say we shouldn't kill babies. That seems more reasonable. So I could appeal to them within their own worldview of secularism or their own worldview of paganism.
Sure, and
Yeah.
they say, yeah, fuck you, we don't care.
Are they in my state?
No.
They're in another country?
Yeah, I'm just asking why they're wrong, why they're doing something wrong.
Why they're doing something wrong
Yeah,
to
why
me?
is that wrong? Yeah.
Because I think it's immoral to kill babies.
Why?
Because I think God doesn't like you to kill babies unless he orders it, like in the Malachi.
Because you assumed that.
I assumed God, yep.
You assumed it, and so they assume.
Well, I'm assuming God, yeah.
So they assume not God.
Yep.
And so they come to you and say, well, you're just assuming this anyway.
And I would say, so are you.
And then they would say, good, we're going to go back to killing babies. And the problem with that is
I'd
what?
say, I'm going to use my language and quill to convince you that you're wrong and that there's a more compelling and better way to live. And I'm going to appeal to the spirit that I think God puts into all of us to try to pull out of you the fact that murder is actually really bad.
I
That's what
see.
do.
So if a Christian nationalist does that within a liberal system, they're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, so you guys can try to compel people to Christianity, but my issue isn't
No, we can compel ourselves to the will of the state. Why not? What's wrong with that?
Sorry.
I mean,
I
what
don't
do
know
you
what you're
mean?
saying right now.
If Christians take over the entire state, rewrite the entirety of the Constitution within your liberal framework,
They can in the liberal framework, but as a Christian, I think that they're being unchristian by doing
yeah,
so.
but who cares? You're just assuming it.
God cares, and I'm assuming that we're all
Yeah, but I
Christians.
assume God doesn't care.
I would question your Christian theology.
Oh, well, why? I just
Because
assumed it.
Scripture. Do you think that like logic, reason, evidence, scripture doesn't exist outside of like foundations?
It doesn't matter. What
Of course it
matters
does.
is what I
Wait,
assume.
How would scripture not matter when I'm talking to fellow
Because I
Christians?
just assume things.
Well, no, you don't just assume things. You're,
Why not?
Oh, you're equivocating again. So what
How
you're
am I
doing?
equivocating?
Because you're saying assuming at a foundational. So when I say assume, I mean at a foundational axiomatic level.
Yeah.
That is not the same thing
My
as
axiom
assuming
is that I'm always right
That's
about
not an
everything. Why can't it be an axiom?
because it's not tautological.
I'm right because I'm right. That's a tautology.
Yeah. Now now I can go. Oh, I don't think that's justified, and then I would prove you wrong.
Okay, but who cares? You just said nothing's justified.
Sorry, are we just doing like nihilism warped tour? Nobody should care. Nobody should care about. You granted me that even at Christianity, you granted me that your worldview is just as unimportant. So how do you make people care?
Because that makes my point, actually.
So
If
your
it is the
hands
case-
off. You're like, none of it matters. My system is
Yeah,
just
if
as
it is
unjustifiable
the
and as soon
case,
as
now I
someone else's.
at least understand what you're saying. So great. If it's the case,
Took
if it's
2
the
hours
case-
and 15 minutes.
yeah, if it's the case that we're just assuming the worldview at a foundational level, and it's an axiom, I'm right because I'm right. Now we have a tautology. Then there's no good reason for me not to assume that I'm just right about reforming liberalism after my own image.
So reason can be it includes things like inductive and deductive logic. This is the stuff that we build off of our axioms, right?
Can.
Well, that's what we do. That's what all philosophical systems are. That's what you do. That's what I do.
Well, that's an assumption.
This is crazy.
Because
Okay.
foundation You're assuming it, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right, Andrew. Everything doesn't matter, anything at all. And in fact, everything that you say doesn't matter, and none of your systems are justified, and that's all just arbitrary and silly.
So then if
that's what you're saying too.
By your view, yeah.
No. You granted my view. You said, I'll grant you Agrippa's trial.
How? Yeah.
No. This is our view now, baby. You said you're joining me. You're in the Agrippa's trilemma acceptance state, okay?
In fact, then, if that's the case,
you're just as arbitrary and just as stupid, and we can't assume anything.
So if that's the case,
We shouldn't talk about anything. Why are we here?
Exactly. So I just want to know.
Well, you're in my worldview. How are you solving that?
What would the argument? Now is the argument for me to impose Christian nationalism?
Well, let me ask that to you. What's your argument for it?
Because I want to.
You're just assuming that.
Because I want to.
Yeah, but you're just assuming.
That's a tautology,
That doesn't
so I'm
make it
supposed
right.
to.
That doesn't make it right.
Exactly. So it's fine to do.
So why are you saying that it's an ought statement?
Oh, wait a second. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, so why is it an ought statement?
Because I want it to be. Because I assume it.
Okay, so your system is wholly unjustifiable. There's no reason why Christians should do it. They're just like moving on vibes.
And there's no reason for Christians not to do it.
Okay.
Right?
I believe in I'm a foundationalist. So I believe in.
Yeah, but you assume your foundations can't be justified.
Everyone assumes foundations. You've already answered me this.
Then if that's the case, then who cares what your foundation
Because in
is?
philosophy, we typically ground foundation.
We don't do anything in philosophy. I don't know what you do with philosophy, but
Okay, Mr. Philosopher. In any level of respected philosophy, we assume
which respected philosophers are you
Aristotle,
referencing?
Plato, Socrates. What are some modern ones that I can think
What
of?
did Socrates?
Heidegger.
Socrates assumed that
Yes.
you couldn't justify anything.
Well, no. Sort of. What we do is we grant assumptions because we understand that at a foundational level, they're all unjustified.
All you did was destroy the possibility for there to be objective morality. That's it.
No, because I think God exists.
Yeah, but you just assume it.
So, but non-Christians also assume that He doesn't exist.
Yeah, so then if they have an anti-moral realist position,
I would use logic and reason to compel them as to why I'm correct.
okay, let's assume for a second I'm a moral anti-realist.
Mm-hmm.
Use logic and reason to compel me when you tell me that your whole worldview is just assumed.
Sorry, you really love that assumed word. Can you rephrase that in a way that's coherent?
That was coherent, but I'll do it
Okay,
again.
let's assume it wasn't.
Foundationally,
Let's assume.
I'm a moral anti-realist.
Okay.
Your moral foundations are assumed
Mm-hmm.
and not justified.
And I would say, how do you solve Agrippa's trilemma?
No. You told me, the moral anti-realist, that.
Yeah, and then the anti-realist goes, well, your opinions are just assumed, right? And I go, yeah, how do you solve Agrippa's trilemma?
Why would they need to? They're anti-realist.
So even
You just destroyed the possibility for objective morality.
No, I didn't.
You did.
No, even subjectivists fail Agrippa's trilemma. They fail by infinite regression.
Okay, again, who cares?
You forgot about that one, didn't you?
That doesn't hurt my argument.
Yes, it does.
If I'm an anti-realist, a moral anti-realist, I say there are no moral facts, and that is completely and totally in line with Agrippa's trilemma.
So Agrippa's trilemma would say, how do you solve for infinite regression?
Why would I need to?
Because it's a fallacy.
So thinking's a fallacy.
No, infinite regression's a fallacy.
Okay, but everything's going to reduce to an infinite regress, right?
So what comes before thinking?
Well, that would be transcendentals would come before thinking.
Okay, what comes before that?
But we would make the justification of God, right?
So you're assuming, no, secular
I'm
anti-realists would
talking
not assume
about
God.
you.
No, not me. If
You don't
were
assume God?
I do assume God,
So
but
then
we were
all
talking
the
about moral
transcendentals come from
anti-realists. Andrew?
AI can't fly. They can help boost trajectory for more.
Andrew is not an argument. Keep all this fucking ass.
Just grant me. So they'd be like, well, why do you believe God? And I'm like, I just assume him. And they're like, okay, well, I can't really contend with that. It's just assumed. And then when I build my entire case for why I think morals are objective, because I think God instilled them outside of us and that they are in every person. And I say, you can see this in the universal ways in which morals consistently emerge. We see this trajectory of humankind moving towards greater and greater moral systems, right? Free speech and respecting one another and treating everyone kindly. And what you'll notice most importantly is not only are those morals objective, but they're the Christian ones, because God is real. My God specifically is real. That's how we do that argumentation.
Okay, so are there moral facts?
Yeah, yes.
And are they just assumed?
At a foundational level.
Okay, so then any moral facts that I assume at a foundational level are equivalent to any moral facts you assume at a foundational level?
No, not equivalent. I didn't say these are all equivocal.
What would make them different?
My use of inductive and deductive logic is better. I use better reason. I have more evidence
Well,
for my
better,
claims.
hang on. What does better mean here?
Better means like more coherent, more consistent. Like
Yeah, but why
logical
is that
potential
better?
value. Because it seems to produce better thinking. It seems to
Yeah, you
work
just, that's a
alongside.
tautology.
Yes.
It's better because
everything.
it's better.
Yeah, tautologies.
Yeah.
Welcome to philosophy.
Yeah, so
Andrew.
then I just want to make sure, so you're just gonna endlessly be in a case of infinite regress and tautology?
Sweet of you. I appreciate that.
And then there's no moral facts or just assume?
Just let me pour my energy drink that's
Okay.
Ryan respectfully, and then we'll get back into you really struggling with philosophy.
Oh, I'm having a struggle, that's true.
You are.
This has been very difficult for me, I agree.
I mean, hey, you've at least accepted the reality that your beliefs are just as unjustified as everyone else that you mock, which is great.
So might makes right.
No?
Yeah, it does. Yes, why wouldn't it?
Because of things like coercive power versus legitimate authority.
Who cares about that shit? You're just assuming it.
No. So
Yep.
again,
At its foundation,
Do you think
whatever
that-
arguments you have
you think
are
like all of this
assumed.
around me just doesn't exist because I'm assuming it?
Wait. Material things?
Yeah.
Is philosophy material?
Yeah, it can be.
How?
And pragmatism is often.
How?
Pragmatism?
Yeah,
It's
how's it
often
material?
interested in like material effects.
That's not material. That's
So-
you're just saying what it's.
I'm so sorry. Hold on.
Party foul.
You were so sweet to remind me I destroyed your tech.
Yikes.
Did we get all the tech out of the way?
Can we get paper towels? Pass them to Kyla there. A little spillage, it's okay. Here. No, it's all good. I'll take care of it. You guys continue with the debate. It's all good. Don't worry about it. No, it's all good.
Let's get on your stream deck first. That's what we'll get.
Yeah. Here, look care of it though. You guys can continue on with the conversation. It's all good. It's all good.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I'll continue.
So,
When I knocked that over, did that happen materially or did we just all assume that it happened?
well, I would say that happened to material reality.
Oh, and so how do we think about that? Like, how do we decide that actually it fell because of gravity versus like God trying to push it down?
We would probably run an experiment or something like
Yeah, we
this.
would use like reason and logic to build up a belief system.
Well, the thing is though, is like
You
that
really
wouldn't
don't
make
like it,
that wouldn't
I
make
guess.
philosophy material.
So not all of philosophy, like the art of living wisdom, isn't material, but it commentates on materialism.
Yeah,
all
but
the
you
time.
just said it was material.
Well, parts of it can be material. Yeah.
Which parts?
The part that is your brain thinking about things.
No.
Is your brain not material?
Okay, so is the
Could I have this
philosophy-
conversation if I
is
didn't
the
have a brain?
philosophy itself material, or is the brain material?
The brain's material.
Okay, so then not the philosophy again.
I don't know why you think that this is a dunk.
I'm
Saying that
not trying to
philosophy,
dunk.
I said philosophy can engage in the material, of course.
But you said.
And then I said, for
you said it
example,
was
one of the
material.
schools is pragmatism.
Yeah, but that's not material.
Sure, okay. You won.
That's all.
You're so smart, Andrew. You got me.
I don't know. No, hey, you're way better than me. Help me out though. I'm actually fine, kind of staying right here.
So you accept that your belief system is just as unjustifiable.
Oh, sure. Especially for the purpose of this
Do you actually?
conversation.
No, not for the purpose of this conversation. Don't be like bad faith and
That's not
presume
bad
things.
faith.
It is bad faith to presume things that you don't actually believe.
That's
don't
not bad faith.
Do not purport to me that you believe in things that you don't believe. That is definitionally bad faith.
How?
By self-delusion or self-deception or in this case explicit deception, saying, "Yeah, I believe this," and it's like, "No, you don't.
Yeah.
You literally don't."
Got it.
Or do you?
Do I what?
Do you believe that Agrippa's trilemma means that all?
You convinced me.
Okay, so now I don't know what to do with this. I guess falling into snark is your way of solving your bad
How am I
philosophy.
falling into snark?
Because you are either being genuine
You convinced me.
and rude.
You convinced me all moral foundations are completely unjustified. And since all moral foundations are completely unjustified, any facts we build off of those are not going to be justified.
Well, they're not going to be axiomatically justified, but they can be reasonable and coherent.
So they're still unjustified.
Yeah, but we seem to like value these things that seems to produce good outcomes.
Yeah, but you
It seems to
could
build a better
never
society.
say we seem. It seems to me like that collectivize and just beat shit out of women, stuff them in cages too. That seems to me like a possibility.
Sure, the issue is that
What
a lot
would
of
there's
other men wouldn't like
there
that
are
because men are
no-
a class.
A lot of men would love it. They did it for years. Half the world enslaves half the women. What do you mean?
Okay, men also freed a lot of women, right?
And they also enslave them.
Okay.
And so who cares? It's like, if that's the case, if all it is a reduction to the idea that there are no moral facts,
Things that are
There can't-
unjustifiable
d-
does
like-
not mean that things don't matter.
well, it means that there's no moral facts.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No, because you have to assume.
You're assuming there's moral facts.
Yeah.
Do you know what a fact is?
Yeah.
What is it?
In fact, is something that is real and true.
Okay, so you're making a truth
Back in a
claim.
minute.
Yeah, I'm making a